So and I would say that's enough friendship to last for quite a while.
And I will say on stream, and I also realized I wasn't recording this, so I just started the recording. They have convinced me to move back to Vim from my Emacs. Because of all the work we've been doing together, I just started finding myself hitting the Vim commands in my Emacs instance, and I'm like, oh man, I guess I might as well just go all the way. So I even rebound things out, everything.
That's oddly contagious, because it was definitely not an intention of set out. Like we've said a number of times on here, we're not attempting to engage in any of the holy wars. It's just the argument can easily be made though. Like if you see it and you start doing it, there's something there.
I mean, I'll go out and say that it's about time. One of the things that I've recently read, there was like a article I think on Hacker News that was talking about like, oh hey, like let's go and get more familiar with Emacs and all that stuff. Totally cool, that's awesome. But one of the like very top comments on there was like, Visual Studio Code, like you could go download that, install an extension, get up and running in less than 5 minutes. Where the Emacs, like it's fun to tinker, like in my opinion, but it takes 30 years to like get to that same functionality.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I found my old MRC and everything, and I went back down that rabbit hole. But and also like we could use Visual Code for a lot of the Visual Code. Visual Studio Code? VS Code, whatever.
VS Code, yeah. Visual Studio Code. Then.
Visual Studio Code, yeah.
For some of the work that we do together, being that we could just do the live sharing or whatever that's going on.
Yeah, it works really well, yeah.
It really does. But I figure because we're also on the command line, setting up a Tmux instance with Vim installed and all the tools already installed, where we can just get in there and do the work that we want to as a shared. And we're also old school nerds who like the CLI more than clicking around. It felt like a natural fit for it, and it was only a sacrifice on my side when you two have already been there. So, it's all good.
Don't worry, all you VS Code fans, because we're gonna talk more about Visual Studio Code in this call. There's some cool stuff going on with that, with the topics that we're talking about today.
Speaking of,
before we follow that transition, I think actually while we're brainstorming ideas for upcoming sessions, I'm with you more old school. I want my IDE local. I want my command line, but Code Ready Workspaces is a shared IDE. And I just got confused because I looked over the Twitch screen and I see Brian's head moving because I forgot about the delay. But Code Ready Workspaces is a shared IDE that I've played with but never done a legitimate collaborative project on. So that could be really interesting to live hack the three of us in the same workspace and attempt to build something and just see how it goes. Because like I said, I've never actually done it collaboratively. It's always been okay, this is cool, but I'd rather my own IDE. Could be an interesting upcoming stream.
That would be like just getting something built. Yeah, no, I like it.
Yeah, well, we definitely could do that. I have Code Ready Workspaces like up available at all times, so we could try to figure something out. I don't know.
I see that nerd flex over there. I haven't gotten my invite yet. Just saying, nerd flex over there. Come on now.
If you want access, I could hook you up. But
even more of a nerd flex. I see how it is.
Oh my god, I will hook you up. Is that better? Anyways, I don't know if because it's based like the editor that's in there is Eclipse Che, which is not Visual Studio Code, but it looks like Visual Studio Code. And a lot of the extensions do work in there. So maybe we could do something like that. I don't know. We have to figure out, maybe we'll play around with that and see if we could do some kind of live share with that. But either way, it's really neat, like what you can do. You could create stacks and, you know, workspaces that like this project goes here. Well, we should talk about that at some point. I think that's a neat thing to talk about.
Sounds good. Well, I guess I was going to suggest our next next stream was going to be AWX, because I've never actually played with that, but I guess we can just bump that one down because this one seems like a lot more fun. So, all right, let's share my screen here. Share screen.
One thing while we're on that topic, if somebody is interested, before we do talk about it, there's a link, you could check it out. And actually, like, I think on the Eclipse website, there's like a button you could click that's like, try it out for free. And you could try it out. It actually runs on Openshift online, and it's like it's a free space, and, you know, you get access to that. So anybody could get access like immediately with, I think, just an email address and a password, maybe.
So Brian, I don't know if you realize this, but we're on a live stream that you could literally just give me the link and I could like bring it up and actually show people.
Yeah, I need to figure out.
Not that I'm being like harassing you or anything. I'm just saying it's just one of those opportunities.
I'm getting the link. It takes a second, you know. It's just eclipse.org/Che, and then CHE, and then scroll down at the bottom. Eclipse.org.che. So Eclipse Che is what Code Ready Workspaces is based off of. But if you scroll down, you can see it looks like Visual Studio Code, like from.
It really does.
But it's not. This is Eclipse Thea. It's a different project. But anyways, if you go down to the bottom, there's a right there, software as a service, free account, and that runs on Openshift online. You just have to go and create.
But again, this is different than the code stuff on GitHub. This is a different thing, correct?
What do you mean?
So what Jay wants to run with is different than that. This is the open source version. Is that correct?
So what this is launching is an Eclipse. I think it's Eclipse Che. I don't think that you're getting access to I'm not sure. I don't remember. It could be. This could be Eclipse Che. This could also be Code Ready Workspaces.
Okay. To be honest, I'm fuzzy on where the differences lie, to be honest. I know there is one, but it's like a branding thing only.
Got it.
From what I'm, I mean, I think there's a lot of, you know, things that like Eclipse Che doesn't have the Red Hat middleware, you know, portfolio things baked in so that you could easily launch a workspace with those middleware components in there, where Code Ready Workspaces would have that. And Eclipse Che might be like a, you know, later version or something, or a newer version that, you know, is newer, where Code Ready Workspaces might be a little more stable, vetted out, whatever. I'm not sure if that's true, but it could be the case. I definitely know the middleware components are part of that.
Cool. Well, I'm about to see it. I don't know why it opened up another tab though. That was kind of weird. Object. Object. Oh, queued for provisioning?
Oh, yeah. So what happens whenever, at least from what I've seen before, I've done this like once or twice before, but what happens is you go and create that account. It then goes and provisions you a space within Openshift Online, like the Openshift Online free account or whatever it is, which that takes a little bit of time. Once that happens, then like automatically you're also going to get access to Che in here. It shouldn't take that long. Like I'd imagine that, you'll get that email that it says, hey, it's ready by the time this stream's over, probably before we go to the first break, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Unless something else is kind of going on that's a little bit weird. But yeah, I mean, if anybody's interested in this is pretty nice. It's basically, I mean, it looks like a Visual Studio Code, but it's not running in a web browser. So you could do native Kubernetes or whatever code editing in your browser. It doesn't have to be on Kubernetes. You could create your own apps, do whatever, but you're editing this in your browser, and it's actually running within your own project on an Openshift or on a Kubernetes cluster. So whenever you go, there you go, you're logged in. This is Eclipse Che, so not the Red Hat middleware portfolio is not a part of that. But so for example, say you wanted to make a Go app or make a Python app, you should be able to go and click on the Python one, and it will create a new workspace for you. And what it's going to go do is pull the images and stuff, which they're probably already available in that cluster. So it should launch pretty quick, I would imagine. And it's going to go provision you a whole new namespace or project wherever this is running, whichever Kubernetes cluster. And then it's going to drop you into that Visual Studio Code looking editor. And then you also have a terminal that's available in there too that has all the build tools and all of the things that you would need to build your app for whichever programming language you defined. So with Python, this is obviously going to have Python. It's going to have pip, and there were some things that are in there. Whenever you clicked on Python and created a workspace, there's a concept of a stack or something that we could look at here in a little bit, but that allows you to, I haven't played with that very much, but that allows you to define your development environment. You could pull in Git repos, you could do things like that while you're provisioning, so that you could hey, this is a new collaborator for my project. Well, hey, we already have code ready container or code ready workspaces or Eclipse Che running. Here's the stack file or whatever. You could just provision this yourself, and they get access to the code that might be in a private GitHub repo, and then they could do their thing. So you can see on there's stacks right under workspaces and that side thing.
So, dumb question. This is cool and all, but how do I run this thing?
Yeah.
Is there a way to run this?
Yeah. So you should be able to, similar to how you'd run it in your own type of environment. Usually what I do is click on terminal and I'd open up a terminal. So if you go there, open a terminal, pick the Python one. There's two. One of them was one that has the Python stuff. One is other tools and things like that, I guess. But you could go in here and run Python hello world.
Yeah. Nice.
There's also there's Git built into the side, just like you'd expect for Visual Studio Code. And there's ways to add extensions and things like that, I believe. So yeah, that's kind of in there. It's kind of neat. So yeah, this is a neat way. But I don't think that there's the live share ability. But maybe there's a different way to do it. I just don't know. I haven't looked into it.
So this reminded me of something I saw last night. And of course, I'm doing this real time. I wish we were going down this, but I would have had this prepped. There's a gentleman who Justin Garrison. Do you know who that is? Works for AWS now. Real big into the Kubernetes ecosystem. He posted. Where is it? Oh, come on. No. This is good streaming when I can't find a link.
Hey, see, look, it happened to me. Now it's happening to you.
So there is this guy.
Yep, I've used that. I like that too.
Yes. So tell me, what is the difference between Coder?
So
where does this one fit?
So okay, the reason why I know all of these things is probably where I would want to go. I like telling the whole story. So I use this thing a lot. This is my
Mhm.
iPad, right? iPad
Mhm.
11-inch Pro or whatever. It's nice. It's a freaking awesome computer. I love it. It doesn't do everything though. Like I don't have Xcode or Visual Studio Code or whatever on here. What I end up doing because I don't have that is opening up Blink Shell, which is a nice app that is able to SSH or Mosh into environments. And if you're not using Mosh, you should definitely be using Mosh, especially on this or laptops or. But anyways, another thing. It's a great way to stay connected to your sessions. Anyways, the reason why I wanted to do that was, like Vim and all that is awesome. I love working that way. Like I could do it. And that's probably why I like do that a lot, is because I use my iPad a lot. And that's a reason, like that's a way for me to get things done productive.
Okay.
But I do use Visual Studio Code every now and then when I'm on a computer, and I want to be able to access that somehow through my iPad. Well, Code Ready Workspaces or Eclipse Che, which is in the browser we were just talking about, hopefully would fulfill that scenario, but it really is only supported in Firefox and Chrome. It doesn't work in Safari. There are some issues and bugs and things like that that they're working through. Within like the past month or whatever, like we were able to start debugging a little bit, and the initial login step wasn't something that could be done. Now I could log in on my iPad with Eclipse Che or Code Ready Workspaces, and I could build a workspace, but I can't launch it. The Eclipse Thea part doesn't work on this guy. So that's, oh man, that sucks. That didn't work. So one of the things that some people, suggest is like, hey, this code server, which this is just a separate company they went through, and they took basically some of the stuff that's going on in Visual Studio Code, as far as I know, and instead of making it wrapped in a Electron, type of application, it's running on a server. There's some, maybe that's not exactly what it is. Maybe it's Visual Studio Code legitimately running in a container or something with the ability to connect into it through a browser. It's really easy to launch. You could run it locally on your own network or whatever. You could probably even run it in Kubernetes. One of the big differences
it's just a container, right? Like in theory, couldn't this be our little toy app? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so like the thing is, like, this is like a one-to-one mapping, right? Like if you run code server, like that's yours. You would have to launch like a whole nother one just for me, which, I guess Code Ready Workspaces or Eclipse Che is handling multi-tenancy and multiple people connecting in with multiple workspaces and things like that defined. So Code Ready Workspaces and Eclipse Che give you that multi-tenancy that you don't get from Code Server. They give you the ability to go and, hey, I want to click on a Go app and I want to start coding immediately. I don't have to deal with setting up my, CLI tooling within this coder container and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So that's one of the big differences that I've found. One of the other things, though, is the code server or whatever. Seems like it works on my iPad. So that's neat. I've played around with it a little bit, and it works pretty well.
Well, in you speaking and telling us a story, I got code server up and running on my laptop.
Yeah, it's fast. It's easy. It's fast. I mean, the same thing with, exactly like Eclipse Che, like you clicked a button, it launched that quick. Same thing. The same with like Code Ready Workspaces. If you want to roll that out, there's an operator. Jay talked about operators. We're going to talk about it later with pipelines. But the operator handles the installation and handles that multi-tenancy. And like, if you log in, like basically all I have to do to give you access to the one that I talked about earlier is add you to my GitHub organization. Once I added you, I've already set up like rollback access control so that you could access my Openshift cluster. And since you have access to that, you will also be able to get access to Eclipse Che or code-ready workspaces within my environment. So that multi-tenancy aspect's already kind of done, and I don't have to manually pull those levers. But there are, it depends. What are you trying to achieve? Are you a company trying to get multiple developers working within a project, and you care about software and your code not going on those developers' laptops? You want those to stay in your own data center. You want those to stay on your own hard, like, Eclipse Che and code-ready workspaces, and maybe even Coder, maybe those things are tools to allow you to do that, where, somebody just trying to run something themselves and they're only, they have a one-person team or whatever, like, it's valuable. You could go and create the code-ready, workspace or Eclipse Che, software as a service, click the launch button, there you go. And it's running on Openshift Online, and that's awesome. I have access to an IDE, didn't pay any money, it's really fast. But, running Eclipse Che and code-ready workspaces in your own environment, you own that data, and the code and all of that stuff remains on your Kubernetes cluster, your OpenShift cluster. Like a long time ago, I worked at Citrix, and that was such a really big value proposition to a lot of people. Like, people are developing and working in software and applications. They want to, management and things like that want to make sure that the IP remains the IP of that particular customer, that particular, you know what I mean? So Eclipse Che allows you to do that to some extent. I mean, granted, like JJ, you could go log in, get access to the environment and copy and paste it into your own notebook, or like, that's a possibility, right? So yeah, I mean, they're pretty neat stuff. And like, all of this stuff kind of is on top of the mind of a lot of people right now, because hell, GitHub just came out with GitHub Workspaces. I don't know if you saw that. That's pretty neat. And that, basically, I think what happened there was, like, Microsoft saw, like, oh, hey, this is awesome. We've been doing, I think they called it Visual Studio Online, which was like it's called Visual Studio Workspaces right now. And Visual Studio Workspaces is Visual Studio Code running in Azure, where you basically are doing this type of stuff. Like, you're working on Visual Studio Code in your browser, and they've been doing that for a while. But recently, GitHub just announced, hey, we're doing it too, probably sharing the same Azure environments and things like that they're talking about. And now it's like, oh, hey, this is a beta, like, it's free for now, but like, at some point you're gonna have to pay for the space that you're using there, because you're going to need, like, some kind of horsepower, CPU memory allocated to your workspace, so that you could build things and do things, because like, that requires compute resources.
I'm just going to jump in real quick and say, no one's made a comment about me putting another programming language as Bash down over here. Jay, you're on mute.
When Brian stopped talking, I was going to yell, type in COBOL, you coward.
Yeah, that's the right answer.
There you go. There you go.
You got to yell in COBOL. That's the right
way. You'll get approved just on general principle alone. Like, I want to see how this plays out.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see how it goes. But this was the Codespaces that you were just mentioning, right? So
yeah.
This looks like, really cool. Yeah.
All of these things are all based around the same type of, tool, right? They're all based around something that is like or is Visual Studio Code, which is very popular and pretty awesome. I saw this come out, and one of the things that I gleaned from that is like, man, I'm sorry for the people that are working on Atom, because Atom was like GitHub's, IDE of choice. They developed that in-house. I don't know. I don't think that they've they've been developing. They've probably been working on this, which is
Well,
cool. I liked Visual Studio Code.
Adam was all JavaScript, right? Just like Visual Studio Code. It was like a progression of generations, right? Like Adam was the first like really GitHub oriented one. Then Visual Studio Code came along, took all the lessons learned of Adam, and then made that a little bit better for the Electron app to be able to be more cross compatible on all the different operating systems. And then they moved it into the cloud, and now this is the next generation of that, where there's some really, really awesome things going on.
It's tied into your GitHub repo that you're already working on to get pulls and forks and PRs approved and all these things. So it's all in one area. Like, that's a cool thing.
Issue tracker, your wiki's in there.
There is one inside of GitLab, though. Yep. Am I wrong on this?
GitLab's been doing it for a while. Yeah, I see this kind of like Visual Studio Code, I think, is a lot more featured as far as I'm familiar with, although I don't know if there's going to be limitations. But GitLab has been doing this for a while. And I think GitLab, like as far as collaboration goes, like GitHub does really awesome stuff for being able to collaborate. But I think that GitLab has more collaboration for each specific step in the flow and things like that. Like, and they've been doing this kind of editor within there as well. Like GitHub has the basic editor or whatever, but it's not as featured or whatever as Visual Studio Code, which I think is more than any of this, or what GitLab has built in.
Yeah, there we go. That webIDE, that's what I'm looking for.
Which, I mean, it's pretty similar. Granted, I think that some of the biggest things that are probably different would be GitHub's workspaces, Eclipse Che, all these things we talked about that are Visual Studio Code based or like, work with Visual Studio Code extensions. And there are a ton of extensions that allow you to make your editor yours and like a lot more featured than what you get off the shelf. And I don't know if you could do that with GitLab. Maybe.
And it looks like you have to set up your own. Yeah, it looks like you have to set up your own terminal too. If you don't have your terminal set up, you actually have to do some more work compared to the other ones where it was just like click and now you have your container doing the thing.
Yeah, so like GitLab might be like, if you're running GitLab on-prem, it could spawn a terminal for you maybe. But if you're not, then you got to figure out your own way to connect it in or something, where the way that GitHub's workspaces or whatever like is making you like subscribe to a under the hood. I bet it's going to be an Azure instance here with like a container that's run. So like you have that kind of access in there, but like those are cool little ways to work on things.
Cool. Well, that was one hell of a tangent.
All right.
I definitely think as a future topic, we dig in and we actually pick one or two and work on them and see the differences. I had something I was going to mention unless I forget. Oh, it's just kind of bonkers to me how quickly VS Code came out of nowhere. Like 4 years ago-ish, 3 years ago, I hadn't heard of it. And then like overnight, everyone was using it. And that's all you saw people talking about. I like it. It's not my favorite. I understand the model and the flexibility. There's a couple things about it that just feel off to me, but like that said, like it's still kind of bonkers. Like you said about Adam, like, yeah, VS Studio just came in and ate everybody's lunch. And it's kind of bonkers how fast that came out of nowhere.
Yep. Like the biggest thing that I think has against Visual Studio Code, at least in my book, is it's an Electron app, which I understand that lets you run that software on Mac, Windows, PC. You don't have to think about it. It's easy. You get all that multi-platform and all that stuff. That being said, like the negative that I think is like, why do I need to run another Chromium instance with more RAM and all these things when I could open it up in a tab, which is what they're letting me do in GitHub or Codespaces and Visual Studio Code workspaces and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So like all of those could run in my own tab. And like I try to do that for other apps too. Like Slack has its own app, but I go to whatever my workspaces.slack.com in my browser because I'd rather have a tab and have
Really?
that all managed that way. Yeah, I do that instead. Now on the iPad, I have the Slack app because it's not an Electron, another thing running in a Chromium, like a whole nother Chrome-based browser or whatever. Granted, it might be a React app or some craziness that's running JavaScript anyways, so what's the difference? But whatever. Anyways, that's the reason that I try not to do that. But it being an Electron app allowed them to really easily, I guess, make it into a web-based application because code ready workspaces, Eclipse Che, all these things are, very similar, I guess. Especially the GitHub Codespaces and the Visual Studio Code workspace, I think is what they call it. Those are all Visual Studio Code, but they're not in the Electron app. They're running in your browser, so it's.
I'm really curious to see. I'm like, the nerd in me is like, maybe if we take the code server, push it into OpenShift, create a route to it, and then we all open it up. Would there be 3 different like locations, or would we just see one and we just step on one another, kind of like we are in the TMUX session? Like, I'm actually curious to see what happens. And to Jay's point, that should be another stream, but that would be really interesting to see. So
I think that I'm not sure. Yeah, I think probably what happened would be like we all have an editor that has our own current version of the same file, and whoever saves last gets the rights.
Yeah, because it'd be different containers, wouldn't it? No, it'd be the same containers.
No, it's the same. It's the same, but it's this. So it's the same volume and all of those things, right?
They could go the route of locking other people out, like pun there, but my router, if I don't correctly close the tab and I'm logged into my router and I try to open it again, it's like, hey, you already have an instance, log out of that first, and then I gotta wait 5 minutes for it to time out. That seems like overkill, but it also seems like a single solution to any potential oddities people would want to do, rather than try to figure out all of these weird situations of the timings and the race conditions and stuff. Instead, just be like, we're gonna go nuclear. One person can get in, and if you're using it the way it's supposed to be, you will never see this functionality kick in. That said, I do want to try it though.
Yeah, no, but I guess we gotta know. Start over. I guess we know what we're going to be doing next week.
Yep.
Okay, but why are we here this week?
Focus, Brian.
Hold on. While we're on that, I have read this. I'm not trying to just add it into the chat. They do have a code server or whatever has a FAQ page that has some details around their multi-tenancy. And they're saying that basically run a VM or another container, I guess, with that whole thing going and manage that. So like, that's kind of, why whenever I was talking about code ready workspaces or Eclipse Che, like that's a reason why you would want to use that. If you're running and have multiple users, code server is awesome for one person, right? But managing all of that, probably difficult. Code ready workspace Eclipse Che handles that for you.
Right. This is straight up not a container native solution. And you can see by that
one-to-one mapping, like I want Visual Studio Code running in a browser for myself. That's it. That's all I care about. But that solution works for a lot of people, and that's fine. Like if you want to use that and that's what your requirements are, go for it. You know what I mean? But I don't think there's any like authentication, none of those things. Like you have to add auth on top of that to make it secure. And so other people just don't get access to your code. Like that's not a part of the code server. I don't think I saw you log in, right? Whenever you opened that.
No, there was it did actually ask for a password. And we actually have a question from Ghost Pepper Hackers. Somebody want to jump on that real quick?
Yeah, so the question is this for pair programming or something along those lines? Why not just use Git, version control, subversion, whatever? And that's exactly that's one of the points. So one of the points with some of these tools are they allow you to do pair programming within that editor, right? So Visual Studio Code, GitHub, workspaces, these things I believe should allow you to do live pair programming, which JJ set up some Tmux stuff in the terminal that we're going to use eventually on this call to kind of show some of that.
Brian, we have been using it. You just haven't been paying attention.
We are using it.
We are using JJ and I are having a blast over it.
So yeah, I just ruined the text, but to show you, JJ's been typing, but I did that. So Visual Studio Code allows you to do that and allows you to get pair programming. One of the other benefits of using any of these tools are they give you more things than just using a basic text editor, right? You get the extensions that allow you to do more cool things. And we're going to eventually talk about Tekton and pipelines and things like that. And there's an extension that allows you to, hook into that and visualize your pipeline a little bit easier in your editor while you're developing the tool or the pipeline. So there's a benefit to using some of those things, but some people just like working in the terminal and using Vim, which I am one of those people. I like that. I also like using Eclipse Che and using Visual Studio Code. Like I'll use either one. I think sometimes there's a better tool for the job, and you should use those. In all of those solutions, you also probably should be using version control. Like we need to be able to be collaborative with other people, not just pair programming live at that one time. And we want to track history and track what's going on with our code. And version control, GitHub, Gitlab, blah, 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 allows you to do that. You know what I mean?
JJ 6 months ago knew exactly what he was doing. JJ today, no fucking clue. No clue at all.
and flip side, so same for me. And then Jay 6 months ago was an asshole. According to Jay today. To Ghost Pepper Hacker's question, awesome name by the way. There's a couple of other solutions or problems you see typically answered by this, or I guess pitched as an answer, where new developer environment setups or just in general environment setups. So without knowing anything about your background, depending on the project you come to, you can be looking at, a day and a half just to get your system up and running. Like, do you have Docker installed? Do you have Kube installed? Then set this up, set that up. If it's built into that IDE, it's a lot simpler to get a new dev and be like, go, or be an old dev who's like, hey, I managed to screw things up. I want to rebuild it. And then it's capturing all of those dependencies. So, I'm that kind of sloppy hacker that will install everything I need on my local desktop. And then a new version of Fedora comes out and I typically slash and burn rather than upgrade, just because I've usually accumulated some cruft that I've played with. When I know I should stand up a VM and be like, oh, I want to experiment with this, I just sudo DNF install it locally. And then
I will say, I did not do that with Fedora 32 because I've been using Silverblue, and I know I could easily go back to what I was doing previously. Just go and do the rollback command, and it just takes me back to 31 before
He's selling us Silverblue again.
I know, right?
Selling us Silverblue again.
Awesome.
I like the dichotomy that I have going on, the juxtaposition, is that we've got my graybeard on the one hand, who's like, I'm writing COBOL in Emacs, and then we've got Brian, who's like, I'm writing on an iPad or my Silverblue desktop, which actually can't even store state, which, if you think about it, is an odd 360 back to the graybeard days of green screen terminals. So we've kind of gone right back to it.
It can store state. Just certain directories in the path could do that. Other ones are read only.
Doesn't want to. It's funny on this security. I just moved back to using Fedora.
I've been doing this for a while. It follows a similar type of thing. Like the Chromebook has a secure boot, those types of things allow me to get an image update. I verify that it's valid, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of benefits that I get to it, but if I want to install a package, I got to reboot my machine. That's the biggest negative, I guess.
I love when Brian's fired up. This is going to be a fun one today.
Yeah, it is.
By the way, let me get back to Ghost Pepper for a second, because there's the environment thing and then there's the portability thing. So this started hitting me, I guess, about 4 years ago when I moved into this role where I was traveling more. but I'm currently on my desktop, home-built desktop, Fedora 31, where I've largely been clean about how I've been handling things. That joke aside about just install shit and then delete the entire OS. Like I've been trying to be like, oh, I need MySQL. Let's see if I can actually do this without installing the client locally and, port forwarding through Kubernetes and Openshift and stuff like that. So I've actually been doing this as an experiment to see how little can I install on here. Until it gets frustrating and I'm like, screw it. But I'm not always at this desktop. So I have my laptop, also Fedora 31. And how do I keep them in sync? So if I was bought into this, then there's the idea that type on my desktop, and then, I have to go into, I'm traveling to a conference, get there, and boom, I'm back to 100% my environment. It's not like, I have to check out the code, which I know I'm making this sound like this is a bad process, but there is still the, oh wait, I got to check it out of Git. Oh wait, I got to run npm and download 3,000 dependencies. Oh wait, I forgot to set this up. Oh wait, my keybind. Hey JJ, you've got something loaded up, so I'm just gonna let you go.
Okay, I was going to say, you don't set up an OpenVPN server to your house and then OpenVPN into your machine and then just SSH in to do some tmux work on top of that. Just saying.
So the funny part is I actually do, but I do it more for the inevitable thing I forget, and then
there you go.
Yeah, of course, Brian. That could be an entirely other topic. The one caveat to that is my outbound internet on my house is absolute dog shit. So I don't really rely on that for stuff. But there have absolutely been times where I've had to text my wife and be like, go to this website. It's usually like a what's my IP or something like that. Send me the IP address, because inevitably I'll check in on Friday. Everything's fine. I travel to San Francisco and I go to log in, and over the weekend, DHCP decided, hey, we're going to give you a different address. But yes, I mean, I feel like we've all been in that point where I'm like, I know I'm going to leave something at home. So there's also been times where I've stupidly shut my desktop off. I'm like, we're going to save electricity, not make my office like 1,000 degrees in a rainforest. And then message my wife, go turn on my desktop because I need something off.
Yeah, my flow's that I use WireGuard. You're typing it in. I have WireGuard set up on my router, which is an Ubiquity router. I got that set up. I could SSH or WireGuard in from my iPad. If my desktop that I usually have running is turned off, I do have Wake to LAN set up on that guy, and I just run like a command in the browser or in the terminal that's on my iPad. To wake that thing up, and then I get access to like the stuff that I might work on that way.
That is awesome. I've thought about the wake up on LAN, but I've just never bothered to set it up. But when I was traveling to Villanova twice a week and I would run into this problem, I was like, I really should go that route. But
you just have to turn it on like in the BIOS of your machine. Once you set that up, then there's a bunch of different CLI tools. You just have to know what the MAC address is. And I just saved it like in a note or whatever on my iPad. So I have it.
I just want to jump in real quick and say that data discipline, sorry, yes, this terminal was only just to show Brian that there was an actual password when we spun up the local code server container. So cool. That was just to show you that was actually doing that. But data discipline. This is the terminal we'll be doing it in, which hopefully you can read it. Please give me a thumbs up that you can. This is usually the size we work on. I just kind of popped that out real quick. I did want to throw in one other thing. My boss Nibs, he actually introduced me to Tink. Back we were in Portland for some reason. I think it was Portland DevOps days, maybe. I don't know. We went to a meetup in Portland for Linux user group that same night. He had to do a presentation. It was a presentation on this thing called Tink. This is before WireGuard got pushed into basically came out. This is one of the first distributed VPNs that use that weird key or whatever to kind of connect together. If you're looking for another one that isn't mainstream, Tink has been around since the beginning of time, it seems. And it should be relatively easy to set up. I have not been able to automate setting it up myself, but I've always flirted with the idea of getting it working myself. So like Brian, I have OpenVPN running at home that I can just VPN in and do the things I want. 9 out of 10 times it's actually from my phone because I use Pi-hole at home, and I push all my VPN work, all my everything through Pi-hole. So when I'm actually out into the real world and I'm getting, those stupid things because I'm on.
Whenever you're playing games on your phone when you're traveling, you want to have Pi-hole so that you don't have to watch those stupid, annoying video ads.
Exactly.
That's why I have it.
That is the most amazing
WireGuard's
Pi-hole I've
now
ever
part
heard.
of the kernel. So now like a part of any Linux has WireGuard built in already if it's running like a certain version of the kernel, and you just have to install WireGuard tools and like you have that already available to you, and it's like so easy to set up. Like you just pre-share a key, I think, in the configuration file, and that's it. But
I will say that there is a lot of conversations on Pi-hole about the gaming thing for the online game or the ad games, because there are ones that are smart enough to see that you don't actually go through it and you don't get the bonus, and they've actually called it out on our Pi-hole on Reddit, being like, you need to actually whitelist these so these games can actually get the bonuses for the game that you were playing.
See, that's why you use it. I mean, I know. But yeah, there's another game that I've been playing lately that basically is like, oh, hey, can't connect to the video server. You're getting the bonus points anyways. I'm like, yes.
Oh, that's awesome. So, and if you haven't seen this yet, just because I want to make sure that everyone knows about this, it's called Pi-hole. It is phenomenal. It is, if you are just stepping into this world, I cannot stress enough going and using this on your local network at home. It runs, and it can run in a Docker container too, if you want to just run it ephemerally on your own laptop just to kind of play around with it first. But you will find yourself using it very much so. I mean, hell, I'll show some dirty laundry real quick, and I'll show you mine.
Dude, seriously, in all seriousness, while you're pulling up your dashboard, like, I feel like a lot of things on the web, like I understand that like businesses and things need revenue to be able to run. But sometimes ads are just so invasive and they're freaking horrible. So like they're destroying a lot of aspects of the web, I believe. But I understand the whole revenue aspect. I think that's valuable. I buy apps when I can and things like that.
They just abuse it.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's abused. And then other times, like there have been a lot of vulnerabilities like spyware and viruses and blah, 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 that have been packaged up in an ad that somehow gets its way through Google AdWords or whatever. And that lands on your thing. Like I've definitely seen going to a website or whatever on my iPhone, and it's like, oh, hey, all these pop-ups, like click OK to download the thing and install this app or whatever. Like, that's not okay.
Not at all.
And I think like ad blocking is one of the security vectors that you could control, and you should have like layered security. So you should have an antivirus. Maybe if you're running Windows or whatever, you should have an ad blocker, but you should have multiple. You should have that DNS-based Pi-hole, but you should also have a browser extension or something baked into your browser that's also helping with ads and slowing them, like, because they are invasive.
I'm going to throw this out here. I live in a household with 2 pre-teenage girls, my daughters, and 11% of my traffic is being blocked because that's ads. Now, that isn't as bad as I've seen on our Pi-hole on Reddit, but still.
I've seen higher, yeah.
Yeah, still, think about that. 11% of the traffic was just trash, right?
My good friend has 40. He runs it for his home, and it's like him and like his mom and his sister and all this stuff. And like, I think his is like 40%. I'm like, are you kidding?
The best way I test this stuff is actually I go to, believe it or not, CNN is a really good place to look, because you'll notice if you go to the CNN, if you're watching this right now, if you go to CNN without ad blockers, there are multiple ads all over this thing, including right here. As you can see, I can't see it. And right down here, it actually just rips it out completely. It even shrinks some of them down. It's a great way to make sure that your Pi-hole is actually running.
It's also
I'm just
amazing on
laughing.
like devices. So I would look at Metacritic.com, and if I pull it up on my iPad, it just basically chugs to a halt because everything starts to load, and then you get the drop-ins, and you get the flyouts, and like there's like a tiny little snippet of content just buried by ads, and that's where it's like abuse. Like I'm with you, Brian. Like I understand they need to make money, but if they didn't do it so offensively and egregiously, like I would be fine with it. But it's gotten escalated to a point where I'm like no longer like willing to like deal with that. So I set up the pie hole, I load a Metacritic, and it's so usable. I got an older iPad too. It's like 4 or 5 years, like a generation 2 or something like that. So like it used to chug to all hell on Metacritic. And now it's like a barren website of just actual content that I can get to. And I posted my number in there. I'm at 19.9% blocked. Yeah, that's with actually a preteen girl and then my 8-year-old son. So between the two of them and likely, varies my own stuff like that because I'm into like gaming sites and stuff like that. So they're pretty ad heavy.
I will warn with also Pi-hole, there are certain products out there like Sonos's. Some AirPlay things actually have callbacks to their motherships, and Pi-hole does mess with those too. So it is not just like drop in and everything works 110%. You will hit first of all, you'll discover the bad actors very quickly because it's a bad actor, right? Like, why are you sending metrics of me listening to my audiobook back to Sonos? That seems kind of shitty, right? But whatever, it's in the EULA. The point I'm trying to get at is that you will find these things, and you need to be cognizant of it. But you also need a way to like the benefits of the pain of dealing with those one-offs is significantly lower when you're not being like ads being thrown into your face like it was in Altered Carbon. Like in a lot of ways, that's a great way to think about it. If you've watched Altered Carbon, again, I'm pulling my nerd stuff out again. When he first when he first got into the city and he was just like overwhelmed and all, and then she came up and slapped the thing on the back of his neck and be like, "Here you go." That's basically what Pi-hole is, and it's so much better. Yeah.
I just think it's hilarious. CNN.com is also mine as well as my friend's testing site. So like we didn't tell each other that ahead of time. So that's hilarious that yours is too.
There you go.
Maybe CNN should listen to their users, but whatever. Anyways, they got to pay the bills somehow.
Okay, so I know Jay's excited because we basically went on a massive tangent for the first hour of the stream because that's exactly why he's actually on this whole thing. But we actually had a reason we wanted to come together today, and that was actually Tekton, right? And we want to talk about pipelines because pipelines are important. Software pipeline is important. The ability to get your mental image of your code pushed out to production in a safe, efficient manner is only effectively done by using a pipeline. Is that correct?
So, yeah, I do believe that like pipelines allow you to get some advanced functionality and things that like you want when you're running your application with multiple people working on it. You have the QA team, you've got this stuff that need to validate and vet stuff. I think that stuff's really important. I think that having some sort of continuous integration, continuous deployment, a part of your process is important. Whether that be a full-blown, custom pipeline that you're building, or maybe you're using the thing that's built into GitLab or GitHub, or maybe, you're developing and you're testing something and you're just working on an Openshift cluster, and you're pushing using the source to image builder, right? Like some kind of automation so that you're not wasting time, which is one of our only real currencies that you're working with in terms of like getting shit done. Like you need to be able to manage that time effectively, and you don't need to waste time on building and handling release gating and all like doing these things like messaging somebody like, "Hey Jay, I posted a new update, can you go build it and try it out yourself?" Like Why you don't need to do that type of thing. You could have the system manage that, and you could automate those things. And that is, I think, where I see a lot of the value in pipelines and what you can get out of that.
But like, I mean, Jenkins exists, right? Why can't I just do everything on Jenkins? Because isn't that what everybody uses? Yeah, it's fine.
If you're familiar, so if you're familiar with Jenkins, go ahead. If you have a Jenkins deployment already, that's totally fine. There are a lot of different, a lot of different tools out there that do the same type of thing, or achieve the same CI/CD. That's what you're trying to achieve. That's what you want to do. You want to automate the build, and you want to automate the deployment, and you want to automate maybe gating to production, right? You want to say like, hey, this should go into testing right now. Click the OK button. It deploys to testing. And then our testers, or me as the developer, could go and test this thing. Once it's okay and done with testing, I could click the button again and say, go to production or whatever. Like that's something that you want to achieve. Jenkins allows you to do that. And if you have a Jenkins already set up, totally fine, not a big deal. Since we have been talking, and we are talking a lot about Openshift on this stream, Openshift has had Jenkins built into, or a way to deploy a Jenkins on the cluster really easily built into Openshift. And it's tied in to Openshift because there's a domain-specific language for Openshift, specifically for Jenkins, that allows you to do Openshift things in your Jenkins pipeline. And you have to like install that plugin into Jenkins if you don't provision it from Openshift, right? So you get some of that by using the one that's built into Openshift to allow you to build that stuff in a little bit easier. But if you got your own Jenkins and that's the way you've been doing it and you guys have that managed, that's cool. There's not a problem with using that.
Well, I was trying to set up for this, which was, I guess, obviously a bad joke. So I actually, with the work that we do on these streams, I have a Jenkins instance actually behind me, right there. I'm pointing to it.
Yeah.
And I just make sure every day it runs through everything we did to make sure nothing's changed. So if we do decide to come back to it, first of all, it's not broken. Second, if somebody asks me about it, they can see it again. But this is not, this I did all through the GUI, right? And this is not, like if this machine blows up, I have to start all my work all over again. Like I have no backups of this thing. And as you can see, it's all just a bunch of, annoying things that I don't want to show my API keys and all. So what we wanted to talk about today was Tekton. Tekton is pipelines as code? Question mark? Is that the right way of describing it? Or like Brian, I know you're very passionate about Tekton. So how about you, instead of reading what's at the bottom here, put up my top secret, tell us what is Tekton?
So really what I've seen is I've been tracking the serverless or Knative project for a little bit. And that's something that's like really, really passionate for me, is because Knative is a serverless framework for Kubernetes that basically allows me to deploy code to Kubernetes and run it in a serverless manner, right? And what does that mean? Like whenever I work on AWS Lambda or Google Cloud Functions, or maybe IBM Cloud has a serverless framework built in, I'm not familiar, but like whenever I'm using those tools, like, do I really care about the infrastructure? Do I really care about OpenShift? Do I really care about Kubernetes? Like me as the developer, I care about my application and I don't care about the ops around building, does this run in a pod? Do I need a deployment controller? Do I need a replication controller? Do I need these things? Like I know this stuff because I've been working with it for a while, and it took me a long time to learn a lot of these names and tools and things that come in Kubernetes. Not everybody knows that, and there's a lot of learning curve to that. So Knative or serverless tools allow me to use the cloud native architecture, use the infrastructure, and I don't even have to think about it. I basically could just give it my code and there you go. And it does things that I want to do. Continuous build, continuous deploy, be able to, gate certain things, be able to scale down to zero, be able to do, like a lot of different things. Like I could do canary, releases because it's all automated. So I'm talking about serverless and Knative because Tekton was a part of the Knative project early on, maybe like a year ago, if that. What Knative, or maybe a year ago, that changed. Knative used to be 3 components. There was the Knative build, which is now Tekton, and we're going to talk about that. There's Knative serving, which is the infrastructure piece that allows me to manage the deployment. And I don't even really have to think about it, but that allows you to create an app, roll it out on Kubernetes or Openshift, and have that scale down to zero. You could do, load balancing. You could do a lot of cool stuff that some of these things you could do in Kubernetes, but you have to know what's a deployment controller, what's a replication controller, how do I do a service, how do I get a load, like those things you have to know. You don't have to know any of this with Knative or OpenShift serverless or what have you. And then the third component is where a lot of it is really valuable, is Knative eventing, which eventing is what makes the serverless framework awesome. You probably see a lot of GitOps, right? I go on github.com and type /LGTM, looks good to me. And that comment ties into a bot that's listening to, my GitHub repo. And basically what happens is a webhook gets fired, and that goes into a Knative camel or Knative eventing construct that's managed by Camel K. These are all things that we'll talk about eventually on the stream, maybe not today, since we're going to talk about the first piece. But those things allow you to react to something that's happened using event-driven architecture. An event-driven architecture is really awesome in what you could do, like GitOps, for example. Other things that you could do would be like, one of the common things that, you might see in the medical field with cloud native architecture is a doctor uploads an image of, say somebody took an ultrasound or something, that gets uploaded to somewhere. The cluster then reacts and processes it and can do things on that automatically based on that upload that happened. And that can happen with an event-driven architecture. So the third component is eventing that allows you to do that. Well, what happened was Knative, the team there decided that basically what Knative should be is the 2 components. We need to be able to manage the deployments and handle the eventing aspects. But the pipeline aspect, the building, the container, the getting that type of thing running and all of that, that should be managed and handled by that first component, which used to be Knative build. Now it's called Tekton. And in OpenShift, we have something that's called OpenShift pipelines, which is our productized version of this. And that allows you to basically define your build process, your build pipeline, your release gating, all of these things in code. You could do some of this in Jenkins, I guess, but this is a more Kubernetes native way to do that, where Jenkins is awesome in what it can do, and it could tie to a lot of different systems. Tekton might have some things that are more Kubernetes native, more baked into the cluster, and allow you to do things that are a little bit easier. Like I said, with Jenkins, you might have to add like the OpenShift DSL plugin, or you might have to add some kind of Kubernetes domain-specific language to be able to access some of that stuff. With Tekton and pipelines, you're getting that already, and it's available to you.
And is this what I just brought up? The OpenShift pipelines operator is Tekton? Question mark?
Yes. So this is the OpenShift productized distribution release of Tekton. And basically, yeah, to get started, just like everything with OpenShift, Jay talked about this, and Jay and I talked about this on the last call. Things that run on OpenShift now or run on Kubernetes are defined by CRDs, custom resource definitions, and custom resources. You create an instance of that. The OpenShift pipelines and Tekton are no exemption. They are definitely still managed and handled by an operator, and you roll out the operator to the cluster, and that's probably the first step that we need to do to get started.
Is it just clicking install?
Yeah, so what you would do, there's two ways. So if you're running Kubernetes, you're not running OpenShift. I think this is important.
We
should be
first
able to
download
go
the Linux kernel. Oh, what?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Exactly. If you're like, you need to know this because OpenShift is Kubernetes is the same thing, but there's some differences that we add, like we add build, we add, you know, like the deployment concept and things like that, like routes and things, right? But if you're running a Kubernetes cluster, you could go to operatorhub.io in your browser, and under operatorhub.io, so if you open that up in a tab,
Operator Hub.
in there, you can just search for Tekton.
Right.
This isn't what we're going to do, but if you're just running a Kubernetes cluster, this is what you should do to get going. So you should, I believe, maybe there isn't. Maybe I'm wrong.
Nope.
Well, I know for
why do you lie to us, Brian?
Is some operator somewhere.
Brian,
I assume that things are in operatorhub.io.
I mean, it seems that we have to install a CLI. So while you're talking, I'm going to install the CLI on our shared box. Seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Yes. So just like React or working with Kubernetes, you got kubectl, kubectl. With OpenShift, you have the OST command. With Istio, you have istio-ctl. With Tekton, you have your own tool that you can interact with this as well. Knative also has another command line tool that makes interacting with this stuff a little bit easier. So yeah, I guess that there isn't a. Maybe I'll have to find that offline.
Okay.
But anyways, with OpenShift pipelines, you could just go into the cluster and install the operator.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and do that now.
So I don't feel like we actually showed this during the operator talk. I forget if I went into.
No, we only did operator hub. We played around in the operator hub. We did not actually show
all in Minikube. Okay.
No. Sorry, not operator hub.
One of the things that kind of is confusing is to some people that aren't familiar is there's the operatorhub.io. This is a community thing. It's not like, I guess, administrated or whatever by Red Hat or IBM. It's part of the community. You guys could, the community has operators and things like that that's available in there. There's Operator Hub, the same name, built into the OpenShift console that has Red Hat OpenShift vetted operators, or they're supposed to be at least. So those are there. They're validated. They should run on OpenShift. Some of them are indeed from Red Hat, like the pipelines operator that we're going to install. Some of them are from the community, right? And if you are a partner of Red Hat OpenShift or you want to be, you can contact us, and there's a process to get into that operator hub that's built in the cluster so that users that are using OpenShift can roll out your software on their OpenShift cluster and not have to think about how to do it the right way because the operator manages it. Just all the benefits we talked about operators last week.
Okay. So what is the difference between Canary and Dev Preview?
Yeah,
That seems like a
so
very specific terminology.
I'm not familiar with the Canary one. I know that to install currently right now for Tekton, the Dev Preview is the update channel that you want to use. I don't know exactly. So in that, the list of update channels are relating to the OLM. I think we talked about that and how that handles updating operators and making sure things are there. So anyways, that update channel is specific for whichever operator that you're installing. And for example, this one, since OpenShift pipelines is currently in dev preview, you use that release channel. But then whenever an update and it GAs, there will likely be another channel that you would switch to, so that instead of running the dev or beta code or whatever, you're getting the stable code if that's what you're trying to do. So like, you could think of it, as a way to be able to do like bleeding edge or like, maybe not necessarily that, crazy, but you could get like dev and like testing builds or whatever. Like those are up to whoever's building that operator and publishing it. But sometimes those things are there. I know like with Google Chrome and Firefox and all the browsers, you could go and install like, separate instances of that. Like no exception here. You should be able to do something like that too.
So real quick, Babe Cafe pointed out Tekton operator from GitHub. So this is the actual operator that if we had a vanilla Kubernetes, this is what we would install?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so like if this was in the operator hub, basically you could see like there's 3 commands to go and roll that out. It would be the same thing. Just the operator hub would list that and have like a nice like, hub page that has details around that or whatever, but the same thing.
There's a way to wire them up together too. It's just another custom resource that you could create to point to your own repository, for lack of a better word, of operators. And then it'll slurp them into OpenShift and appear side by side with the rest of them.
Okay, cool. All right, so we have now officially got Tekton installed on our toy OpenShift cluster. Everything looks like it has succeeded. No?
So we've installed the operator. We actually haven't installed Tekton, correct?
Well, I'm assuming because
I was kind of looking for Brian on that one because like I know there's got to be some piece that gets the actual. This is where I'm a little unfamiliar with. I know it's serverless and everything like that, but I feel like there's likely. Oh no, I guess not. This config.
So we could test out and see. So if you go to your terminal, we could go and do like OC. Or you're logged in, I'd assume.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
See, I try to make it painless so you can just start doing stuff.
So yeah, and you got tab completion set up too. I like this. This is nice.
Nice and easy for Brian to deploy his botnet on the IBM cloud.
There you go.
I just need to sneak in a new, window in here. And
Crow bash it. That's JJ Lewis's mind.
I wish I had that copy and pasted already. So we could do OC API resources, right? And I'll just run it without specifying anything. And this is a lot of output, but this is showing all of the API resources that are available in the Kubernetes or OpenShift API. But what we want to do is validate that Tekton got installed, or at least the operator is available so that we can install Tekton, right? So we could do that with OC API resources and then do like API group and then equals tekton.dev. And on there, we could see that, hey, we have the cluster task, all these things, pipelines, blah, blah, blah. These are all available now, right? And we could access those. And you can see that there's also all the short names and all of that stuff. Like if you want to go and find pods, you should be able to like find pods in here. I'm not sure what the API is for that.
Yeah, just try grabbing
API endpoint. Yeah. but like
somebody
so
uses this is
pod. So on here, you could see that, hey, PO was a short name for, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it actually, I mean, Brian, you're driving this, so I don't want to interrupt it, but A, we're probably due for a quick break, but B, just debate, do you want to talk through the resources first? Do you want to run through an example first? Because a lot of these things we're seeing right here, pipeline resources, runs, tasks, those are kind of the Legos that build up to an actual running pipeline. And within the UI, it's actually a really, I slipped and like let the nerd side of me out on a call with UX. And I was like, this is really badass. Cause like these concepts, makes sense. They just take a little to wrap your head around if you just describe them. But going through the UI and seeing the assemble thing was actually really badass. And then she then quoted me for like the next couple of weeks on various slides. Nice. But yeah, I mean, this typically, I've seen presentations that will dissect a few of these to talk about the Lego pieces. Maybe you want to go through the UI, just something to consider at this point. But it's relevant pointing out that to follow up on the operator's discussion, like all these custom resource definitions are the language you're going to use to interact with it. Last week, we create a single resource and it can span out multiple resources, get created under the covers or something like that. Here, it's very interesting because it's much more of this fine-grained Lego pieces that you eventually assemble and lock together. And then, ta-da, there's your pipeline.
Right. Cool. Yeah. So I guess the point of this, I think, we probably should take a break. We're due for that. But the point of this is we installed the operator. And from what you talked about on the last call is the operator allows us to extend the Kubernetes API. And we now have that extension. And this is a way to validate that we have that extension. That's a part of it. I think you could look at this like the same type of thing in the UI, and that might be a way to look at that. Another thing I think is like if you open the Openshift console, there should be, I think, like a pipelines sidebar element that might show up now if you maybe refresh. Maybe we have to roll out something first.
There it goes.
But yeah, there it is. So that wasn't there before. You refresh after you installed this. And now we have access to all of those things you just saw that the API got extended with in here. And exactly what you're saying, these are all Lego pieces to build out my pipeline. And we're going to end up using a lot of these things. And we'll talk about what all of them are.
And it's in the developer view too. That's cool. Like it's appropriate, right? But with the arbitrary line that we talked about at one of the very first calls we ever got on, like part of me was like, I don't know if it's going to be there, but it's cool that it's there. So awesome.
Yeah,
well,
just like Knative and serverless, like if you install that, which we will at some point, not on this, but maybe the next one or whatever, like that also shows up in here once you install the operator, get it going, and it allows you to visualize things and work with that in the UI a lot easier, right? And that's like one of the really big benefits that you get from using OpenShift. Like I don't really necessarily need to know, I typed in get API resources, API group is tekton.dev. Like, I don't need to know that. I just go in the UI, click on pipelines, and there it is. You know what I mean?
Yep. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, let's give us a 5-minute break. Old man legs, et cetera, and then we'll be right back. Please stick around. This is going to be fun.
though is it's like tmux. Like you should use tmux with mosh is basically like the pro tip if you're going to use mosh, because you don't get scroll back, you don't get things that you would get like with SSH. But if you could solve that with tmux, it's fine. So mosh in, then run tmux or good.
Nice. Well, basically, I made you live saying those things. I figured it was appropriate. So
I love the cold opens. We need to do more of that.
It's fun, right? It's fun.
It is really cool.
It's one of those things you're just like, this is actually what we talk about. Like, it's not a show. This is literally what we do when we get on one of these calls.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden you hit music in the middle, right? When we end on something stupid, we just like hit the music and start going in. But yeah, so like continuing that mosh thought though, like the amount of times I've like, you know, sat down at the keynote and then you open up your laptop because you're there 10 minutes early so you get a decent seat and then type, boom, close it up because it started. And then like, that's pretty awesome. I'd never seen that before. But at the same time, and JJ, you can't fully appreciate this, but for as long as I've known Brian, this has been his personality. And like, I was one of the people who interviewed him and this was what the interview went like. He just kept mentioning stuff and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's really cool.
I know a lot of random weird things, I guess.
That could easily be its own stream of just you talking about random shit you use. Like I would 100%. We could do that. We could show off the different terminal prompts. I mean, we had a fun tmux thing a couple weeks ago.
And before you know it, we're all installing Silverblue on our laptops and stream, and Brian wins.
Yeah, right. He could sell it. He could absolutely do it.
You know, but in all seriousness, Silverblue's awesome. Mosh is legit. and like the thing is, like, what I hate the most is like if I am on an airplane and I'm trying to do something like SSH'd in to get something done because I had an email and I got to do something real quick. I SSH in and the Wi-Fi on the airplane is kind of crappy and I type the letter T and it doesn't show up. Nothing happens. With Mosh, I could type and it retains like everything I type. It shows me and it looks like I'm typing, but there's an underline there. Once my laptop gets connectivity again and can connect to that SSH, that server I'm connected to, that underline goes away and it sends those letters or whatever to the server, which is awesome. So like I don't get that frustration like, oh, this thing isn't working. It just handles it not working in a way better manner than just pausing and freezing and not doing anything. The caveat is Mosh has to be installed on both client and server, as well as you don't get, scroll back and things like that. You have a view window versus like a line by line type of thing that SSH gives you. So whenever you started up the call, one of the pro tips of using Mosh is to use something like tmux on top of that. So you Mosh into the server and set like your command or, just type, open a tmux session. And that way you're able to get, scroll back through tmux and do things like that if you want to go that way. Which tmux is awesome anyways.
Guess what? We're about to have Mosh on our tmux box.
Oh, fun. God, I hear everyone telling these stories of like, so I could do this on a plane. Like, dude, I sleep on a plane. Like I barely get taxied out before I'm passed out cold. And then when I wake up, I'm like, I'm watching movies and listening to like music. I'm not a work on the plane guy.
I forgot what all of that means anyways. So
I know. I will happily do work on a plane. Who would have thought I would be sitting here being like, God, put me on a plane. Put me with the stupid knee-breaking small seats and shitty snacks and smelly airport. I'm like, God, I want all of that right now.
I saw an article. You could now pay like $35 to Frontier and buy the middle seat for yourself.
Yeah, I like all the sentiment of like
rolling the dice.
Airlines need your help now. I was like, oh, where were you when my bag was half a pound over limit?
Yep, it's true.
Yeah, right.
Mesh. So you have to turn Mosh on, huh?
You just have to install Mosh server, I think you just install Mosh on the server side as well as your client side.
Okay.
So you have to install it on both.
So,
because like basically I think what happens is like it still uses SSH maybe to authenticate initially, and then like it tells the Mosh server to like, hey, wake up and open this port and run, and then it like switches over. There's some kind of connection method that it does, but like it does all of that. You don't have to think about it. It just does it.
Nope. Okay,
maybe
well,
you got some weirdness for UDP on 6,000 and 60,000
probably
too.
That's all good. I'll mess with that later, but I will get it up and running just to make you happy, Brian. So.
Mosh is the de facto. It's awesome. I mean, the thing is, like, I will open Blink Shell, my Mosh/SSH client of choice on my iPad, and I'll just Mosh into my server that I have over here, and literally, like, that app stays running. I go back to it, and I'm in the same state I was before. I don't have to reconnect and attach my old tmux session, or if I didn't use tmux, redo everything I was doing before. It just already is connected and works and handles like me switching to another app and then like closing my iPad, walking away, coming back. Like it just handles all of that stuff.
Nice. Oops. Okay. So we talked about what Tekton is. We've actually installed Tekton now. We have a create a pipeline. So we were going to talk about the Lego portions. I think there's a terminology you used to talk about how to build. Yes, to build up to a pipeline that we want. So I just want to, because I'm selfish and I want to make sure that I understand this also. If I go back to my Jenkins instance, right? And if we go back into, let's just go into Docker COBOL because it's just an easier one to show. If I had a job that basically ran Docker build, as you can see, it's real straightforward, right? And I make sure that it comes out and says, this actually does what I expect, and then blows that up. Now, what is that, of those Lego blocks, what is this build portion? Can we start there? Because for me, selfishly speaking, that is how I understand with CI/CD is you start with the build. This is the thing that does the actual work. What is that in Tekton?
I think that makes sense to start with. And I'm just going to quickly point out that I like how you managed to drop COBOL into another stream. I have my guesses of what these are, but I suspect Brian's going to answer this a lot more intelligently. So I'm going to sit back and watch too.
Let's get started. What are your guesses?
I think it's a task. I think ultimately there's at least one task, if not more, in there that is defining this is the thing we want to do. And then if I remember correctly, there's like task resources that feed data into it. And then you assemble multiple tasks into a pipeline, which runs the steps. And then those steps can be concurrent or serial. And then there's the pipeline resources that feeds in data to configure how that particular run is going to run. And then there's another resource that represents a single iteration through a pipeline whose name I'm forgetting. It might just be pipeline run, but I could be wrong on that. So how spectacularly wrong am I?
Yeah, no, that seems pretty much on point, right? So just like you'd be working in Jenkins, like you're creating, I don't exactly recall what the specific like stanza name or whatever it is to do something. I think you just had it up or whatever, like in that build, like
it's called a build step.
Yeah, so like a build step, right? Or a step or whatever they're called. I think that's what it is. In Tekton, that's exactly what it is. Like you're using, the same ideas right here. You're doing a build. You might next be doing like a push to the image registry, wherever that is, and then you might even be doing a deploy or something in these steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least doing a build. All of those are a part of a step that goes into your Jenkins pipeline. Mm-hmm. With Tekton, the name for that would be exactly what you said. It's a task. Okay. So what you're going to do is you would define a task that would probably, first maybe get your code, or, maybe gets activated or whatever from a webhook from GitHub or, whatever. But that task would then have to clone the Git repo, and then it would build your code. Mm-hmm. And that could use, if you're using Jenkins, you're gonna either do like a Docker style build. If you have the Openshift DSL plugin and you're using Openshift, or maybe you provisioned Jenkins from Openshift, you could do a Docker style build, but you're not going to get like the root list type of build and some other things that you would get from running a officially supported or officially ran OpenShift type build. So instead, if you have that plugin installed, you could then use an OpenShift type of build. And then once you're done with that, you then push it to the OpenShift internal registry or to Quay.io or Docker Hub or whatever.
Brian, the compute for these steps, is it spread across the cluster?
So with this, it should. Each step should be ran. I guess what's are you trying to say, like, if I'm building my ginormous application, is that going to be a multi-pod, multi-thread? Like, is that the question? Or is it
That's what I'm
step is independent
in
its own thing?
Maybe answer it both ways. That's a good question. That's curious, right?
So the way that it will by default be is you're going to get a build that is running within its own pod or container or whatever, and that is not handled out on all of the various nodes or whatever. Like, that's not going to be a multi-node distributed build or whatever. You're going to get that one build. There might be a way to do that. I'm not sure. If you have like a really complex, you're trying to build like a Linux kernel that takes a long time. You know what I mean? Like, there might be ways to speed that up. I'm just not familiar.
Ghost Pepper followed up with, that plus, how does it deal with dependencies? Like the Lego blocks rely on each other.
Yeah. We'll get into some of those details. Like, you define a pipeline and you have to define tasks that connect to the pipe, like those types of things. So we'll get to some of those details.
Cool. All right, keep going. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure we didn't lose the questions in the chat.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? I'm not looking. I should look.
Coconut's not here anymore. What the hell, man?
Yeah, Jay Dobby.
I know. I made a second.
What is this?
Professional-ish one, which I'm not 100% sure that I'm sticking with this either. I kind of do miss aggressive coconut.
Yeah. There's consistency.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know. I wish that JJ had awesome instead of JJ.
Yeah, I know. So it's so hard to find. So hard to get. Okay, so where are we? We've talked about a task, which is in essence the build step of doing something, and you can put multiple tasks together. And is that the library? Is there a library of tasks out there to like deploy to GitHub if I wanted to, or do I need to build those myself?
There's as far as like a library of well-defined ones, like there are some examples that are floating out there. Tekton has some examples in their Git repo. I'm gonna paste a link that has some examples of each step and things that you're going to be doing, and actually like a hands-on way that you could try this stuff out on your own. Well, either on your own cluster, it'd work fine there, but you don't even need that. You just need a web browser. And like you could try pipelines with nothing other than a web browser with learn.openshift.com, which I guess now that kind of asking that question, I should probably link that into the chat now. So if you go to learn.openshift.com,
I think what JJ you might be getting at, there's no like Forge type site for this or a hub type site of here's a reusable.
I swear there was a conversation about that in Barcelona at KubeCon, but I guess I was wrong. I swear there
is like a catalog, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a lot of the different components. So if you go to the Tekton CD GitHub repo that you had, under there is a catalog. So no, I was wrong. I just not familiar. So I just pasted it into the wrong chat. Too many boxes to type into. That's my problem.
Yes.
So in here, there's a collection of various things, right? Of various tasks and things that you can interact with. And there would be samples under here of how to do those things. So like GitHub, exactly. You could go in and
so let's take, for instance, add a comment.
Go back, actually, scroll down because they might, I saw an example at the bottom that might just be a little bit easier to kind of piece through. Usage, here we go.
Under the GitHub one. So these are specific GitHub things like adding a comment on GitHub, closing a pull request or an issue or something, where like the Git one would be cloning a repo and then pushing.
Okay, sure.
Just like the hub or the hub CLI versus Git. But on here, this is a really awesome, valuable set of resources, and this is what you would want to work with, right? So if you want to work with Builda or to build your Docker file, or if you want to work with Git to, get your source code or whatever, like that's probably where we should get started, right? Create some stuff, create a tasks, so that we could go and first, what would we want our pipeline? Why do we need the pipeline? What do we want to do? We want to build the image, right? What else do we want to do with that?
Well, if
you're the architect, what do we want?
Well, first of all, I need to go to a meeting with 7 other people to put together a project plan. Then I'll come back. No, I'm kidding.
So in all seriousness, this week has been like that.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's so not good. So not good. We had this OC Python Flask app from 2 streams ago, question mark? When Ryan was here.
Ryan.
Yeah. So we could just play off of this again, which seems reasonable. And then, unless Jay, you really want to build a Python app from the ground up again, but I figured with your knowledge of Python, we could probably figure something else cool out of this that we can get put back in instead of using the not build pipelines, what do we call them?
Tasks.
No. The default OpenShift one.
Jenkins? Tekton?
No, we added, oh God, what was it called? Deployment configs, build configs. We did build configs and deployment configs. We could take this same app that we did without that and turn it into a Tekton pipeline. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Because this is the one I helped you guys write. You didn't get credit for, so I'm completely fine working with this today.
So we'll add you to the commit. It's fine. There we go. We had the post commit command of just doing pep on there, and then we could push it back into OpenShift. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so like that would be like another way, right? So what would the steps be? What would the tasks that we need to do, I guess? Like first, like work through that. So we need to clone the repo. We're going to have to build the application. We're going to have to run.
So tasks. So what we need to do is clone repo. Dumb question. How do I scroll this up?
ZZ will put your thing in the middle, it should.
I had no idea.
ZT will put it at the very top, or ZB will put it at the very bottom, wherever your cursor's at.
No way. Awesome. Mm-hmm. All right. I did not know that one. Cool.
You should play Vim Adventures.
Well, I can't get past the first thing when they're asking you to like do that words thing or whatever. Like none of my commands, like anything I was doing, didn't actually work. Like I genuinely couldn't do it. I was like, what the hell? But anyway,
we need to do a Vim Adventures stream. That's another day.
That's
get you past that step to.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so clone repo. Then we need to install pep 8, right? We need to run pep 8, and then we need to deploy to or build container. Then we need to push to local registry. Is that reasonable?
Something like that. And then you probably would want some kind of like push to the cluster or run.
Run to the cluster.
Maybe Guy JJ like
across Guy JJ across the full Vim Adventures with lots of beers equals an amazing stream.
Yeah, maybe we should like do a pivot right now and get that going.
God, that'd be so much fun.
Oh yeah, cool. Let's actually get a pipeline built. Then we can revisit this. All right. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say no. This could be great. Okay. Run dd on the cluster, or should we say deploy is a better word?
Deploy to.
Does control do anything in Vim?
No, not that I know of.
Okay, I might want to rebind escape. Anyway, by the way, I'm going to take that.
Escape what?
No. Like add another one for what escape is to like control. Don't you have caps lock set to control?
Yeah, control or caps lock is control.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nicer instead of like doing escape all the way up there? Do control.
Yeah.
See, this is what always bothers me about Vim.
Some people will do what?
Having to reach for that escape. That just feels. I know. I kind of fell off in the middle of that.
Oh yeah.
That always annoys
me. Some people will remap control with escape or whatever instead because it's closer, and you might use escape more often, I guess.
Yeah, that annoys me. And then as soon as the MacBook started with the virtual bar thing, and there was no escape button, I've never had to try it. I think I was in like a store once, like for like my phone, and I like ran over to one. And I was like trying to hit escape while just like pretend typing, and I'm like, yeah, that's no. Yeah. So I've this sounds over dramatic, but like that's when I realized I'm like I'm not going to be able to stay on MacBooks while this is still a thing, and like move back to ThinkPads after that because like I said, I'm not like a crazy VI like zealot, but that still just absolutely drives me bonkers. All right, continue with useful stuff.
That's not a problem anymore, thank God. But I've switched to ThinkPads already, so I guess that sucks. But yeah, that last MacBook without an escape key just got switched this week.
There you go.
So the MacBook Pro 13 now has an escape key with a touch bar and an actual keyboard that goes back to something that's usable. Thank God.
Yeah. I'm just gonna have to put inside of add as another command. I guess another inside of the vimrc, add is control equals whatever escape is. Right? Or no, is there control commands you do control stuff inside of Vim? I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Okay. No, let's go back. Let's get this done because then we can have fun later. Okay. So we push the local registry, then deploy to the cluster. What else? That seems like a reasonable pipeline, right?
I think that seems, I mean, without like going through, like if I had to think about steps that I would need to do to get an application, build it, test it, right, do the PEP8 stuff or lint it as something that needs to be done before it gets pushed or built, and then all of that, like those are things that like need to be done. So I would think that probably makes sense for tasks that we need to build, right?
By the way, Martinelli just informed us that PEP8 is actually now known as pycodestyle. So we've been wrong this whole time. Did not know that. So
that's what we should do instead. There we go.
Yeah. All right. Learning something new again.
If you run PEP8, does it just say like, hey, this is deprecated now, like you should switch? Is that, how do I know that? How do I find out that change? That's the problem I have.
He gave us a link, copy link address.
Yeah, I could see this says previously called PEP8, but like, am I always going to be like looking at the PyPy or whatever?
Isn't that a Python thing? Like you live in PyPy? Isn't that the joke?
I mean, no more than, NPM development lives, drowning in modules.
Cool.
Yeah, like exactly. If you were a TypeScript developer, you're just constantly looking at that awesome TypeScript GitHub repo that just gives you all of the different Node or JavaScript modules that have been typed.
Yep, it's true.
Like that's what you need to like look at forever.
Oh, yep, there you go. And for Rust, living in docs.rs makes sense. Cool. All right.
Yeah,
so
very good.
What's the first step here? What's our first step? We now know what our pipeline is going to be. So I'm assuming we need to create a directory for all these different things, right?
We should probably get the repo locally as well as maybe create a project in OpenShift.
Okay. So we want to create some weird lag going on here. GitHub. Uh-oh. My internet connection is unstable. CD, GitHub.
This is where you mute it and yell in your house, who's on the internet?
Yeah, right.
Streaming.
I definitely do not see Twitch stream broken.
Oh, yeah, I see it too.
Or maybe that's just me.
No, I think you got to refresh the page.
Ooh, it is not broken, but it was broken for a second for me.
Yeah,
anyways, weird.
So we want to copy this down. Git clone. Oh, change mod. Shut up.
No, I'm laughing because I've done the exact same things.
Yeah, it was I was being bad. Leave me alone.
You just want it to work.
Exactly. That's all I want to do.
Doesn't matter.
So there we go. We are using the wrong version of Python. So I do not actually know this because this is a Debian box. Don't hate me. Root tmux apt-get install Python 3. Oh, it's because we got to do the virtual environments and all that crap, don't we?
Yeah, when you do the virtual environment, you can pass it which interpreter you want it to get based off of.
Pip. What is it? Pip dash v.
I use the wrapper scripts. I'm not sure actually.
Oh, crap. Hang on.
Virtual env.
Python 3. There we go.
Whoa, what the hell is that?
It is the reason why I went back to a Mac.
Wait, what?
Yeah. It's called Alfred.
Oh, I've seen Alfred. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like there's a Linux version out there too called something close to Alfred, but not Alfred. It's super powerful and it's worth the $20. And there's that's what you see when I bring up this thing. That's this here. There's plugins to do tons of stuff with it. Like I can bring up any app that I want inside of it. It even looks at my connections too, or my contacts.
So for that, did that pull up a previous command you had typed? So it was just like a history thing, or did you make a note someplace and said, hey, autocomplete this for me?
No, so if I want to open up Firefox, I type FIR and it figures out Firefox is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So
I thought it was more of because I have code snippets all over.
Oh no, sorry. This has a built-in snippet thing. So I just fill all this stuff out, have my Zoom, the stream, so I can email you guys, my virtual environments.
Yes. And this is Alfred that's doing this part too?
Yeah. So if I go into show Alfred preferences, if you buy the power pack, that's a $20 one. It opens up all these things, including snippets here, where you can I do option space and it brings up my little thing and I just search and it pulls all this stuff out.
That's amazing.
Before I went back to Fedora when I left Macs and went to Fedora and I came back, this was actually one of the things that brought me back because snippets are so important, but I lost all those snippets. So I'm having to rebuild them all. But seriously, I'm just dink, and then I do paste and it's right there what I need, which is great.
Yes, that's awesome. That's got to be amazing for demos too.
Oh yeah, it really is. It makes life so much easier. So
yeah, it's such an easy way to grab snippets. I love that. Yeah.
The amount of times I copy and paste stuff because I can't be bothered to remember it, but I know I'm gonna need it. But being able to automate that's awesome. Okay, sorry, create your VNV.
It's fine. I'm doing it.
Oh, we need to install virtual environment now.
So it seems. For the first time ever, I removed sudo from the base user, so I have to go in as root only because I do not because I have so many people going to be using this with me. Not that I don't trust you, it's that I don't trust you, and I only have root on it, right? So I removed sudo, so I have to go in as root in the other one.
Does it work?
No. See, I told you. I'm being a good citizen now. I'm learning to be a good citizen.
Just one of these days we'll get you to learn to use Openshift.
There we go. And then source, VNV, and bin, activate. All right, we're in. Now, so we wanted to change the requirements to the new one, correct? Because that's something we've already noticed. So this should actually be, what was it, PY Code.
PyWide, yeah. I have it open in a tab.
Oh God, where'd it go?
It was, I refreshed my browser for Twitch, so I do not have it anymore. Of course. Probably could just look up PEP 8. And I would imagine it would say that it's deprecated if you go to PyPy.
Style.
Yeah. And then take off the there's no way it's 1.71.
So like if you go to pypy.org/projects/pep8, there's no details here that say that pycodestyle is what, like, that's what I want to know. Like, how do I know?
How is that communicated?
Yeah. Well, we sent it out to an email on the Google group that no one signs up for to say that we are announcing that we're moving this away. Because, you know, Google groups, people, oh, God. Anyway, don't get me started about mailing lists. The OpenStack in me is going to pop back out. Be like, ha! I know stories.
It's all about, you gotta be in the know so that you're in the know, or else you're left in the cold.
Wait, hang on. High school all over again.
God, I know I'm opening a can of worms here. You said the OpenStack in me is going to jump out. Are you talking about the single mailing list they use for literally everything?
It's true.
And yeah, okay.
It's true. Oh my God.
45 seconds on this, but like every single time someone new comes into the project, they're like, this is really stupid. Why do we have one mailing list for 70 some odd projects and everything? And they're like, because then people aren't going to sign up for the mailing list and it's too much trouble to keep track of mailing lists. And like, and everyone's like, so instead we have to set up 1,000 filter rules so we can actually digest what we care about in here. And the general governance model is like, yes, that's somehow simpler than just subscribing to the projects you care about.
And that bastard comes in and says, "Oh, by the way, I only use Outlook. So how do I match against the subject line?" And you're like, "Oh God, oh."
That's how they filter those people out just entirely. Yeah, exactly. Like they just take them out to the back and shoot them in the head. But I'm glad that it's funny that it's been years, but close to 4 years now since I worked on OpenStack, and I still have the PTSD from the stupid periods and the commit messages, which I've complained about on here before. I'd forgotten about the mailing list, but the second you mentioned it, brought back all the flashbacks where I went through exactly what everyone else was like. This is really stupid. Like, just don't mention it. Just run with it. We've had these arguments. It's not worth it.
Just going to say, my GPG emails onto the dev list for my chef stuff. If you still have those emails sitting around there, you'll see me in there and you'll be like, poor bastard. Anyway, okay. So we need to do, nice. Yes, baby got pig. Yes, Mutt is very, very good. I agree. Okay, so we need to do... Oh God, it was pip-r requirements. No, pip-v requirements. God, crap.
No, it should have been pip install-r.
That's right. God damn it. Pip install-r requirements.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, just looking at it, I would have thought that would work. And I had to like kind of like mentally type out what my fingers, which is why I don't want to go on this tangent either, but like my students were asking me about like interviews and code interviews and stuff like that. Like I hate that process of go to the whiteboard and draw me code because that is so not how it's done. And like that syntaxy stuff, I would be up at the whiteboard just doing this because mentally that's how I would just kind of like course it out instead of writing it.
Yeah. Every time I've ever interviewed anyone, and it's been supposed to be technical, I basically ask them to explain something to me the best they can. And I just ask the next question, tell me a little bit more. And just to see the limit of what they understand. Like I don't, like technology can be taught. It's more important about the person you're hiring because technology, like I said, can be taught. Like if you sit in front of a Python book every day for 3 weeks and all you do is Python, by that time you will be a functioning member of the Python community, right? Like if you don't do anything else. Now, but if you are a complete and utter like annoying human being, I would use much more colorful language if I was on a stream right now. The not being able to work with you is so less important to me than knowing the the weird, obscure technology things on a code interview. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, I said almost verbatim to my students. I was like, anyone can learn to code. I'm like, I'm looking for personality. And that's why when I do senior projects, I lean into it so heavily. I'm like, because if I were to interview you, I'd be like, oh, cool. Tell me about your project. And then start peppering them with questions, not to put them on the back foot or anything like that, but just to see what they did on it. And like, if they tell me, oh, it was great, then you didn't actually do it, because every project goes horribly wrong. And that's what I want to hear and see how you kind of react to it.
Do you see the project we're doing right now? It's gone horribly wrong twice already.
I mean, no.
Okay, so we got requirements installed, right?
Yes. So we should be able to do PEP 8 locally. PEP.
No, py codestyle now.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, pycodestyle.
No.
Try it. Autocomplete gets kind of wonky. Thank you.
If you install something,
it doesn't always autocomplete correctly for me. Try typing it out and see what happens.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, cool. And we have a broken run. Right. I mean, so this is our goal, is to show this, right? Like, we want to change this eventually to make it work, but we want it to be broken so we don't actually have too many things going on, right? Or is that wrong?
No, totally agree. No. I was about to correct you when you said broken. I'm like, I mean, like, yes, I know the code style is very important about these 2 lines. I wouldn't have said broken, but then I also started talking before I saw where you were going with it. So yes, this should fail our pipeline.
Yes.
Our gate. Yeah, our gate is to be able to push to the image and be able to run. We need to have PEP 8 or pycodestyle now validate that our Python's linted appropriately. Like, that's one of the gates that we want to enforce, just like we did, I guess, on the other one, just using the native source to image builder that's part of Openshift or whatever. So like, we want to do that. I think that's a good way to showcase some of this stuff.
Okay, so we've tested it locally. We've obviously in a broken state, but that's fine. We know that it works how we expect it to. We pulled it down. So the next step is to do OC create or a new project. Tekton testing. Sure, good enough for me. Sound good?
Sounds good. Right. And then the next things that we're going to do are building the tasks that we need. And then once we do that, we build a pipeline that connects to the tasks that we need. So like, once we do that, then we should be good.
Okay. So how do we find, or how do we build our first, okay, start over. Preferably, I would like to do the tasks on the command line just so I have that experience before going through the GUI. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we could build the stuff out in YAML and on the command line and then go and see them in the console. Like, that's totally fine.
Or would you say, as a someone who's learning this, they should do this first through the GUI?
Since this is newer and still in dev preview, I'm not sure. Like, go click on pipelines and expand that. Not create pipeline, but yeah, I think
that one's empty.
Oh, on the other one, I think that maybe, I don't know. Go to tasks and see. That's what I was trying to get. If we try to go and like create a task, I think it'll just might drop you just into a YAML editor, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. So like, it doesn't necessarily make it like you're getting some of the basics out of here, I guess. But like, I think in later versions of OpenShift, like some of this stuff might be like form-based, where you're going to start filling out some of this stuff versus just being dropped into a YAML editor, so it doesn't really make a difference. In the developer view, like you should be able to see each step visually. So like that's a valuable thing, and you should be able to see that in this version of OpenShift that you have. But like as new versions are coming out and stuff, like this stuff is being worked on to make it easier to consume and use. But currently it's just going to drop you into a YAML editor. So what's the difference?
Okay. Sounds good. So we'll go back to the developer view, have the pipeline open. So when we actually get the stuff going, we can see it. But we are
if you click create pipeline in there too, I'm pretty sure it also, I think, drop you into YAML editor. Yeah.
Where then we
it gives you some stuff though, like which might be kind of neat, like the samples to kind of look at those. But we also have that catalog that we looked at too. So some of these, like,
there's a
although it's right there, that's probably either the Docker one or the S2I build. Both of those are probably what we're looking for. So to get started, like I would do that.
Okay. You want to hit try it?
Sure. Let's try it.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So I guess the question is, do we want to use a Docker build or do we want to use a source to image type build here? What we did before in the previous, like I guess 2 streams ago, we just built the image using source to image and added that PEP8 processor or whatever, like as a separate like step or whatever in the build. I mean, we could still do a source to image type build here, or we could specify a Docker file. I don't remember if that's a part of our repo or not already. I think there's a Docker file in there, right?
Hey, Brian, real quick. Just because Jay can't hear us, he is so giddy right now. I can actually see how giddy he is because he got his mic stand. Like I can see it. Do you see? Oh, he stopped smiling. A second ago, he was giddy.
Yeah, can we make Jay full screen right now? Do you have a button to do that on your mixer? So just as a context for people that are watching, right before the stream, Jay was really excited that he was going to get a boom mic stand for his microphone, and that was supposed to be delivered like literally right as the stream started, and it's obviously here now.
Yeah. That's so good. So good.
So we're watching this live happen on air.
Oh, it's fun. If you can't have fun doing these things, it's not worth it, right? Like you got to have fun.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, it's good stuff. Okay. So
I didn't notice that. Thanks for pointing that out, by the
way. All right. We are sitting at okay, so we have this build. Like let's just make this as easy as possible, right? Let's not bring in too many other different things.
Yeah.
We want to run pycodestyle. Sounds so much. PEP8 sounds so much better. Anyway, we want to run PEP8. Yeah, right. We're going to call it PEP8.
We're staying with the old school. That's what's important.
There you go. And then we're going to run PEP8, and then we're going to build a container, and we're going to deploy the container, just like we were planning. So this is still a relatively good example because we want to... No, it's not, because it doesn't do anything we really want, apart from the deploy, correct? Am I wrong?
Yeah, so in this, like with Python, I guess, because like we're not compiling and building a jar, like all we really need to do is do the deploy or build the container image. But like if we were using something where we needed to compile it, then that build step, I think, would be really, really important. So if you're using Java, Go, things like that, like you would want to do that step. But with Python, we don't necessarily or shouldn't necessarily need that.
So if we come back to our catalog over here, and we just want to do like just a simple run. No, we need to check it out first, don't we? To your point. Get clone. Wow, that's a lot of stuff.
I saw this going way smoother in my head. Can you guys at least still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool. I'm going back and mute the
microphone.
Continue to screw with this.
So do I want to copy and paste this whole thing into our pipeline, or do I want to turn this into a task and then call the task and let this sit off in the tasks thing?
Yeah, I'm not.
Because there's no way in hell I'd be able to support this in the long run, right? Like I shouldn't put this in the pipeline because they make the pipeline like massive.
Yeah, you don't need. I mean, obviously, we don't need all of the things that are in that. Like that's doing multiple things in here, right?
Yeah. So let's close all these down. So we can go over here, and then we can go into administrator, to tasks, create a new task, delete this guy, grab all this, right? Copy pasta, because it's the best thing to do on the internet is just take random code and put it onto your pipeline.
Crow bash it.
Of course.
Hell
that's
yeah.
what's important.
So we create this. API version beta 1. The fuck does that mean? Do I just remove that? Nope.
Yeah, what was?
It was a beta 1.
That earlier. Oh, there's no details around that. So you could do OC.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Show us the versions if you can. Yeah.
Yeah. So like one of the ways, I think you could do like OC create. Well, so we're in the right project. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. You could do OC create task. I think. Tasks dot.
So Ghost Pepper Hacker asked, can you think of a pipeline as a tree or as a DAG? I'm not too sure what that stands for. So basically you can have two tasks or prerequisites for a further task. And yeah, I believe that is
UI version. You're going to see it's kind of column based. I'm describing in UI, but conceptually it's going to kind of paint the picture for you. So it's kind of column based, and then there's task, and then arrows that almost like a flow chart leads into the next column, which is one task or 5 tasks. And then they all flow left to right, kind of interweaving in and out through these potentially parallel paths.
Mm.
Yeah, so like I get exactly what you said. Like each task is running in its own container, all within the same pod. And exactly what you said, like they flow together and they can like interact with each other somehow. But then like exactly what you said, like they flow to like some kind of step or gate where this is what's going to happen next. Either that needs to be like a manual approval process or something like that. Or hey, if like PEP 8 successfully went and we're okay, right? Like that should be okay.
Okay. So
anyways,
what do we do about this API?
This
API version.
What version of Openshift are you running?
Go back to the web console and like what was the same? Like what was in the sample? So if you open the sample or whatever, like what was the API version as a part of that?
Good question. Hang on.
Because the V1 beta 1, if this stuff,
Alpha
okay.
1.
So this is an older version of Openshift where stuff is still moving.
That's different. Yeah.
Presumably the YAML should be close-ish, but in our defense, there's no assurances. So if it's not, if for some reason this is incompatible, then
We
I mean,
might
at
run
the end of the day,
into a
it says alpha and
problem.
beta. So
unknown field params.
I'm wondering if then this was copied out of the catalog, right? I missed kind of
Correct.
part of this
Yeah.
as I was busy almost hanging
Maybe
myself
there's
off my
like a
headphones.
branch for
Exactly.
alpha stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, here we go.
There is.
Alpha 1. Good call, gentlemen. Oh, called inputs.
Nice.
Wow, that makes life so much easier.
Yeah, they changed it from inputs to params or added it's inputs dot params versus just params.
Yeah. Interesting. Huzzah!
Good on them for using like proper development practices and branching appropriately.
Yeah, y'all can't
Yes.
hear it, but I just did an applause notice thing, so people at home could hear us. Yeah.
You had the button? I did not hear that. No.
Yeah. Well, I haven't been able to figure out how to get it. I have a tutorial.
It goes just to Twitch,
Yeah.
not to us. Yeah.
But I have a tutorial on how to fix it. I just haven't sat down. I got the tutorial yesterday, and I was like, oh, this is actually what I need to do. But I don't want to fuck with it for the stream tomorrow because I don't want to break
all of your audio routing that you already set up. Yeah.
I will say the delay is enough where during that conversation we was explaining it, I unmuted my Twitch login and I heard the applause. So very cool. The delay is and it's still not as bad as YouTube though, because I was just checking my YouTube streaming setup and it's just ridiculous how far back it is.
Awesome. Okay, so we got a Git clone, so we can go back to our. Wait, this doesn't keep the pipeline open. Crap. Right. So
we just did a task though, so we don't have a pipeline yet.
But do I need to open up two web browsers now? So whenever I add a new task, then I can create, because there's no way to save this stuff, right?
I mean,
what do you mean by that?
Expectation is you would create all the tasks and then later on assemble your pipeline with all of them. It wouldn't necessarily be task pipeline. What you're saying though is probably fairly common where you're still going to have to look up the names of all of this stuff. Now there is some autocomplete in the YAML editor. I wonder how tied in it is where it can actually do something smart. I doubt it, to be perfectly honest, but I mean, you're not wrong that you're in this pipeline, you're referencing other things that you created. So it's super convention based at that point. Like you can fat finger that very easily. So 2 tabs is probably not the worst approach. Or, you don't do this directly in the UI like this and you use an editor with multiple windows and kind of get around it entirely.
I don't know. I'm not sure if, like the YAML editor part of here is going to give you like your tasks that you've defined as like a, code completion thing. But like the pipeline is basically defining tasks that should be executed, how they're executed. And like if you have params that are a part of that Git clone, which I assume there probably are, you could specify those things and what the values of those params would be. So you probably need to reference both of them, but yeah.
So the param here is known as URL. So we need to do
inputs dot. I guess it's slightly different, but I think you just specify params.
Okay, so first of all, task reference, we don't need that, correct?
I don't think so. Or the task reference is that's what maps to the name of the task that you defined. So you do need that.
Oh, okay.
So your task name was Git clone.
Task name was Gitcon, yes. Okay. And it is a kind of a task, not a cluster task. So I guess it's only, a cluster task is cluster wide, where a task is only specific to namespaces.
Yeah, I think so. Should probably look at and pull up the docs to reference this stuff for sure.
Name of URL. And then the resource would be the actual URL. Let's see. Pull down my HTTPS, so I don't have to deal with keys. Okay. Next. Defaults to master, that's fine. Right.
Should be good, yeah.
Oh, wow. So that's not, that's, ugh. The
What?
description is at the top on this one, and then this doesn't, they should all be in the same order.
It looks like it's alphabetical, and there is no default for the URL, because what do you default for a GitHub URL?
Yeah, true, but it's still, it's really weird to read, right?
I can see that, because I consider that first entry, even though this is not how YAML does it, as kind of the identifier for the rest of the stuff I'm going to see.
It
Exactly,
should
like
say default colon null. Like it's a required thing, but like we don't get
I appreciate that they at least
default.
alphabetized them. That shows some level of effort. Or I say they, it's terribly possible that they just had some linter do it for them, but
Yeah, it's probably linted. Okay, don't care about any of this stuff. Fine. Default source. Subtree out, no, it's fine. Clean out the existence, fine. That's it? Oh. That was a lot less involved than I thought it was going to be. Okay. So then, and we have no output, correct, for this task? Or how do we tell?
So I think so. Like each task should, so a task has the concepts of things that you're doing, and that should boil down to a result, which I believe would be the output.
Just checking it out, right?
Yeah.
Because this is all just crazy stuff to check stuff out. Oh, here we go. Output name. The Git repo will be cloned and the volume backing this workspace.
Yeah, okay. So it's going to output the stuff into the volume. That's what we want then.
and then that way we're going to tell the build step, hey, this is where you can find the source.
Okay. So that is our first thing. I've actually already forgotten. So we need to install pycodestyle. So this is now a task that we need to go in and run Python on, right?
Probably there'll be a Python task.
There is not.
Okay, so there's
Slack
a maybe
message.
Gradle one.
In case we need to push this into Slack, which is important, not like running Python. Why would we run Python? You know,
there is S2I, which seems like it could be a catch-all solution of, hey, specify your builder image, and then, although that's not going to give us our PY code step.
I mean,
Is there a general bash one?
That is a just give me bash. That's all I need. I can do everything if I just do
it myself.
Yeah, there's Ansible Tower, but there's no bash.
You could do. There's ways to do here. There's for example.
Importantly, there's a mail resource to send things to.
Honestly, that one is kind of cool though. Build broke, mail the team.
Yeah,
Slack,
fine,
Slack is arguably for that too, because that's even more annoying.
God, just kick me while I'm down. I'm trying to make a good joke.
I wanted to believe me, I wanted to be with you on that one, but actually, there's no better thing than the Slack annoy message for build breakages, because emails you can filter out, but Slack just pisses everybody off.
That is true. That's what I'm looking at, Brian. The catalog.
No. So I pasted it into the Twitch stream.
Oh, copy link. Aha. This looks good. Nice, Ghost Pepper, nice. Okay, so we can just take
in there, like, you know, there's that one, like.
Do we just use a bash image container and then just run bash commands inside of it? Is that what we do here? Or like the CentOS?
We need one that is like the Python. We would need a Python image that already has Python and pip installed, right?
Which is any Python, like the standard issue Python-based image has both of those.
What I normally probably would do with that would be just looking into the...
JJ, I don't like where this is going.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I like to experiment, but I'm going to suggest we don't go the Alpine route for the stream.
That's amazing.
Call it a hunch.
Yeah, come on. Like
I pasted that in. So like, that image, there's an image associated with this that has, you know, the various versions and stuff. So like the image, if you go down, and you'll be able to see like which version of Python do we want to use, and then in there, there should be, I think, you could click on like the Docker Hub image and get, you know, hey, where that is and all that stuff, or available in the Fedora registry. So
here we go. Let's just go with this one.
Yeah, there you go.
That looks perfect.
I feel like that's what I typically use. Yeah.
Where is my thing? Okay.
So what I just pasted, if you guys aren't familiar, is the software collections repository. We were just obviously looking at the Python source to image builder, which has the stuff that we want in here, so that we already have Python installed and all that stuff. But it's important to know that, hey, you could use software collections to find like a container image that has Ruby already installed, or, you know, Node.js or Go, and you could use those as base, you know, your base image, or you could use those as starting points for your app or whatever. So just look up the software collections, which is either that Git repository that I linked, or I'll link the software collections like website where you can search for this stuff online.
Now keep in mind, the one you linked though is an STY base image.
Yeah, so what do you implying, I guess, by that?
I don't actually know. I started that saying it's not going to work, but now that I say that, I'm not entirely sure that that's the case. I know it's going to have its default, like the scripts and things like that built in, but as I said that, I don't think I've ever tried to use one as an actual just base image and then manually build on top of it.
Yeah, I think like what if we overwrite like what
overwrite command, it should be all right.
What we're doing is overwriting the command. Yeah, it should be. It might have some additional things or whatever in it, but like as a step in our pipeline where what we want to do is install Pep 8 because, you know, we're stuck on Pep 8 and not whatever this new thing is, and then run Pep 8. Like, I think that this is probably an okay image to go with.
Yeah,
to do that.
That's a good point. If it's able to build things, that's literally what we want. So,
yeah.
Okay. So can I say create this now, and can we see if this actually works before we go any farther?
Yeah, there
Is it
should be a
reasonable?
way. So hold on. You're creating this in a pipeline context.
Which is fine because
Try
it's
it.
not a
Create
pipeline
it. Let's see
run.
where it goes.
This is just creating the pipeline itself without
Failed.
triggering it running.
Unknown field args. Oh, was this supposed to be deeper in?
Was that a different?
Crap, where'd it go?
Because this is V1 beta instead of V1 alpha or whatever.
I think so. Here it is. So much docs. Yeah, that's master. I need. Oh, this is a completely different naming convention.
Yeah, it is.
Fuck.
There's probably an easy way to figure out which, specific version you have installed, but
we're on this journey together. That's for sure.
We're getting there. So I found like version, if you go to like tags 10 or 0.10.0, like you start getting to V1 alpha stuff.
Oh my god! All right, just
switch to the go back to where you're at. Yes, go to branch or the drop down, and then go to tags.
Got it. There we go.
The 0.10 was like, at least that one was V1 alpha. Just
0.10.
I'm not sure if this is exactly the version that you're on, but yeah, there you go. You're on it now, or maybe you're not.
No, should we do the release? The release of
release 10.x probably is the same. Yeah, it's probably better.
And then it was under docs
tasks.
Oh my god, this is completely different.
The second one, or the
here we go.
example task.
Right. This is what we're looking for. This is actually almost exactly what we're looking for, right? Steps, image Python, whichever is image we want, and then we run a script against it, right?
That would be fine. Although I don't know if this would, you probably have to maybe use the Python image versus like the S2I image we're specifying. Because I think the Python image has like a way to like run stuff with like this way, maybe. I don't know.
Well, we're on this journey together. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, that should be fine.
Famous last words.
Should be fine. It'll work.
It's all just code, right?
This is better for you anyways. You don't have to put it all in brackets and blah, blah, blah,
That's a good point.
Even though you already did it.
Store my life. All right. That looks right.
And then we probably just want to do like, do you also in this want to do or create another one or do this in the same one, like PEP 8?
Oh, shouldn't we actually do we want to create a virtual environment for this too, or no? Is that going too far?
I think it's ultimately overkill for a builder. A virtual environment is nice if you're going to be switching and you don't want to worry about tainting your Python site packages. Machine. We're just going to be throwing this container away. So I think it's actually a neat use of containers there to be like, well, fine, I'm just going to work directly in this and toss it away. It's its own virtual environment in that respect.
Yeah,
these are called steps. These aren't called tasks. What?
Oh, it's because this is a task object versus you're creating a pipeline object where this should be in a task object.
Oh, okay.
Did not realize that. Yeah, so this is like a task thing to do.
So we're tasks, cluster tasks.
No. The code that you typed out should be in a task, but look at the kind at the top of this YAML that you're editing.
Yeah. Okay, so cut this.
So we need to like create either a new task, I guess.
Yep. Back over here. Tasks. Create task. Paste. And this is actually, there's a lot more to this thing in there. Here we go. No, we want, oh, son of a bitch. Cancel, create, and this guy, that, and then we can take this, call this install pycodestyle. I know this is wrong, leave me alone. We have no inputs because all we have are steps. So we create that. Damn it. Oh. Stupid.
And the name probably should be like one word. So you need to like either put a dash in there or whatever.
It wasn't
look at line 9. No, sorry, not line 4, line 9.
Oh, okay.
Good eye.
Yep. Copy this. Create. Hey, we're getting somewhere. Applause. Give me applause button.
I'm gonna unmute myself.
Yeah, now we'll listen to that.
Twitch. I totally heard it.
It's not too loud, is it? It's not too loud? Okay, good. Because that was my biggest worry, was that it was going to be too loud.
Seems on par. So yeah, you should now, I guess, be able to specify this in here. There also, I think, is a way to like run the tasks individually outside of a pipeline context. So like if you wanted to like build a task and test it before you throw it into your pipeline that's already built. But since we're just creating a new pipeline with, 2 steps or whatever, like I think this way is fine. But I do believe that there is a way to do that.
And hey, to Christian, thank you so much for rating us. Appreciate that.
Quick, give Christian some applause so he realizes what he's missing over on their stream.
There you go. There's some applause right there.
This is the professionalism we do on this stream.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Mic arm.
And then it's actually influenced from Ryan, because he had his little soundboard, and I'm like, I need a soundboard now too. So
I need a boom mic so I could do this. So it could be like right there, yeah.
Yep. I need to get one too, because like mine's actually just sitting right in front of me.
That was me too. I was like hunched around it, and I'm like, yeah, this is not going to scale.
No, it's really not. It's really not.
I mean, how much better is it than sitting on your desk right now? If you can, because like this is first impressions.
Wait, you're saying
miss out on first impressions? My
first impressions of this new setup that y'all saw me almost hang myself with?
Yes.
I kind of dig it. I'm not sure. Am I supposed to like have it like upside down, or is it? I mean, as long as you guys can hear me, I suppose it's fine.
You need to just make sure that you're talking in the front of the mic, where the
dead of the top. That part I know. Yeah. And actually, maybe I could even pull this back a little bit. But it's nice because the side I have it on, there's this monitor and there's this monitor, so I tend to go between the two. So now that it's like positioned almost exactly between them, it's actually going to keep me safe. The problem is though, when I have to look over at like the YouTube streamer on that one, I'll have to lean, but that's fine. And I know Yeti has different modes. I do have it on the front and the back one, which I was worried when it was sitting in front of me was capturing my keys. I did it on the front cone only, and I sounded way less.
You mean the little butt one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
One that looks like a little
it's butt. Called a cardioid, guys.
No, it's a little butt.
Come on,
it's a little butt.
It's a
He's not wrong on that. It totally does look like a butt. I was yesterday's. Yeah. I know the default. I played with them and I sounded a lot. Actually, I could heart my. No, let me change it so you can hear.
For what you're doing, you should be on the cardioid, the butt one, because like that should pick up what you're saying in front of you, but anything behind you, so like room noise and stuff, should be canceled out.
Gotcha. And do I sound okay? When I unmuted to listen to the audience, I did hear it. I'm also trying to figure out like how close I need to be to this thing, but it is bonkers how much better this sounds than just like a headset mic.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not sure. Then do I angle it so it's coming down and I do like the old school like boxer introduction? But I'll play with it.
You're basically just need to put a what is it? Audacity, the sound capture app. On your thing, and just test it in different places. Like
see what you like the best.
Get yourself a glass of whiskey. Basically, just start talking into it because you're going to be talking because you need the different sounds, different things happening, and then just listen to the different places, and you'll realize very quickly. You know,
it's going to be a lot faster than me typing and asking someone on a 30-second delay. Hey, did you hear that?
Exactly.
JJ's how to stream tutorial.
Hey man, I'm starting a podcast too now. It's getting real deep. We're getting real deep in this stuff.
By the way, I love how glass of whiskey was part of the instructions.
I mean, that's life in general, right?
Right. Got to take the edge off. Duh.
Yeah.
If I have to listen to my own voice, yeah, I could probably use whiskey.
Okay.
Didn't provide required values. Didn't masking tasks. What? So this did not like my task. Git clone. YAML.
Yeah.
Oh, we had main supporter KEKW was actually asking some COBOL questions, which is kind of cool.
Oh my lord.
We could do some COBOL dev and a container environment. So right now, main supporter. Let me go ahead and throw a couple links for you real quick while I'm thinking about it. So we have COBOL on OpenShift. So this was the actual repo that you probably saw the video that we did. This is just a science experiment, right? Like, let's make this very clear. This is us just proving that this is possible. But the beauty of it is the parallel development that you're talking about is that because it's just containerized, you can run your COBOL application inside a container on OpenShift, right? Which opens up which opens up a really, really, really nice opportunity to learn some really cool things. So there's a lot more to the world of COBOL, especially with the different ways the different communication patterns are, especially using Z and things like that. But at least this way, you can work on basic COBOL applications in a secure, in a containerized and ephemeral environment, so you can actually do development on it. Hopefully that answers your questions. Please ask any more if I can answer it later. Cool. All right. So we had a problem with required, didn't match the usage and test, didn't provide required values. So I don't know what this means. Oh, spec resources. So it's having a problem with spec resources.
Yeah, what was required?
Required values. Oh, is it resources, not resource? No, resources, inputs, name.
No, so I think it's saying spec.resources in this, so line 10, pipeline declared resource didn't match the usage in task. So we're missing something in there that's required by the task, is how I'm interpreting this. So the spec.resources line 10, that's where we're giving in the name of the values we're passing in.
Okay.
Now, wait, these are pointing to resources. I've been paying attention, but I forget, did we actually create the pipeline resources objects?
No, so we've created the two tasks, and in this pipeline resource or spec, we need to define the two tasks that we created plus the variables or resources that point to the specific things that we want to do in those tasks.
Yes. So, we're missing an option. That's how I'm reading it.
We're missing something that is required from what we did.
And unfortunately, it doesn't actually say anything, right? Like it doesn't say it's required.
I wonder if the assumption is if it's not
without a default.
Exactly.
So any of them without a default, you got to specify. So like we specified the URL, that's in there. This one, those all have defaults. So
they all have defaults.
maybe it's in the other one. What's in the other one? I don't think the install pycodestyle got a task.
Well, isn't it saying specifically? Wouldn't it?
It doesn't say which one.
Yeah.
Does it?
Right. Tasks? No, it doesn't.
I don't think that there was anything in that one, but maybe there was. Yeah, there's nothing in resources. Maybe you just have to give it an empty resources block.
Inside of the PYs.
Yeah. I see what you're getting at there, yeah.
Like okay, so that's under task ref resources. Like that?
Yeah, that's in the right. Yeah, maybe.
Nope.
Still no. Deny their.
I don't know what I'm
doing. Wait, resource inputs, name equals URL, resource. Is that the right word or is it like value or something? Because it's.
Oh yeah, that could be it too.
No, this would be in like, we need an example other pipeline to look at. So if you go back to the error screen.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, you're right. There's no resource here. It's just the type string
value, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's like the inputs are name as URL and then the value of that input, rather than saying resource, because it's attempting to resolve. If you look in the error message, it actually has the URL in there.
It should be
resolve that as something.
It should be the task, the name, and then under the task there should be like params, I think, instead of resources. Although maybe. No, value. See there, spec.inputs.params.
Which
did you say value didn't work?
No, I haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
Nope. Unknown field value.
Yeah, it should. And so instead of it saying resources, it should be params.
Well, I think this is where we need pipeline resources, because the pipeline resource is what holds onto this value. And then the reason it's called resource is that the reason this field, instead of being called values resource, is because that's pointing to a pipeline resource object, and it's going to pull the data from there.
Do we need a whiteboard?
And then within we could totally do a whiteboard. Within the pipeline resource, there's the params and then name and value combinations.
That's what we're building right now.
No, we're building a pipeline, not a pipeline resource object.
What?
So the pipeline is the generic pipeline that describes this is the flow it's going to take. A pipeline resources are a set of configuration values to run through that pipeline on a particular instance. And then that creates a pipeline run object, which carries the results of that particular execution through the pipeline. So when we build a pipeline, it's this generic, not running structure that we pass pipeline resources into, and then that's how we feed data in, and that's what triggers an individual run. So we're missing a level of indirection here, which is why it's not called value. But in the pipeline resource objects, there's name value pairs.
Got it. So we don't need this.
We need that ultimately someplace else in a pipeline resource object.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out the best way of getting to something like that. So
well, we just crossed our 3-hour mark. So you guys want to take a few minute break here? And then, because I realized I realized we just got rated by another stream and we got 30 people watching, which is pretty damn cool.
To check up quick.
Yeah. I feel like we should keep going though.
We should. I'll stick around as long as I can. I'm going to have a hard stop in a bit, but that's just due to time zone stuff that looking at your clock, you don't have. And I think, Brian, you're along the same timeline. So you two should be able to continue this. I'll hang around as long as I can.
Okay. Well, we should at least try to get this,
Built.
Yeah. If anything. So Brian, I saw you typing away. What do you got? I know you've been searching something. No?
No. I'm looking up. Yeah. Maybe let's take a break for right now and then get back to it.
Okay. So we're gonna take just a couple minute break. Gonna stand up, get some more water, and then we'll be back. And we're back.
I'm good.
Here we go. Oh, hello. Things are happening. Words are happening.
Here we go.
Yay. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. Means a lot. We are playing with Tekton and Openshift today. And we've made it pretty far, but we still haven't actually gotten it to work. So who do I have with me right now?
So you have me, Brian Tanis. I am a Red Hat developer advocate focused on OpenShift.
Jason Adobe's on the same team as Brian. Nice and simple.
And hi, I'm JJ. If you just joined us, we had a raid, a bunch of people coming in, and I want to kind of get to a point where we can at least reintroduce ourselves so you know what's going on, and you kind of understand, we're trying to do the right thing here.
So what have we done so far, I guess?
We discovered that I need to bring up Vim Adventures as I think the joke that kept coming up over and over and again. But no, what we've done is we have an app working, built locally. We've been able to push it into OpenShift using the S2I images and the build process. And we wanted to now use Tekton. And we have 2 Tekton tasks, which I will show now, right here, which is a git clone and an install pycodestyle or pep8. Thank you. Somebody giggled. That's what I was hoping for.
If you've been around, you watch us stumble over this all day.
It's true.
I think in the requirements that task, it's pep8 that we specified. So we're not being truthful in the name of that task.
No, it's true. So we have a question. Any good Z-specific resources to learn COBOL? Oh, there you go. Thank you, Nibs. Nibs was on that for us. Perfect. There we go. But yes, so we have 2 tasks, and we need to tie them together with a pipeline, and then a pipeline resource is actually what does the pipeline. Is that what you were saying, Jay, as we were just breaking away?
I think it's like a pipeline is what's defining the tying everything together, but then you would specify a pipeline resource that defines, I guess, the locations and the variables of all of those things. Because like the pipeline type or kind should be generic, and then you're specifying the specifics for your environment. So like, whenever you build this, which registry do you want to push it to? Like, you probably want to push it to like the local registry in OpenShift or whatever. So like, I think you specify that, and that's how I understand it. Maybe Jay, if you, I'm not quite right.
No, I think that's pretty consistent. I think that's the piece we're missing, because again, a pipeline resource is going to give us that interface that says name and value, and then the fact that we're locked into, so on line 23, we'll move 22 and 23 into a pipeline resource, and then line 23 then changes back from value to resource and refers to it by name. And this is why that entire section you just cut out was called resources, not params.
Got it. So this is a class, if you will, and then
yes,
is that right?
You're not entirely wrong in thinking we're defining a class-like structure, and then the resources is effectively triggering an instantiation of it with some values. It's not the worst.
I've been reading programming books lately.
I mean, the best book of them all.
Oh, which
is this
one?
one?
Yes, it is.
It's an amazing looking book cover.
I don't know if somebody here might have had something to do with this.
I gave it 5 stars on Amazon, and it was amazing because I needed to learn about Kubernetes operators.
So like, if anybody's joining and isn't familiar, check out last week's recording of the stream. Jay went through a bunch of details on operators and what they are and why you would want them, and they're all detailed in this book.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not shamelessly plugging myself, but I'm totally happy when other people do it.
Always be plugging that book.
You really do need to put a book
I'll do it for you.
You really do.
The stack of them right by my thumb, there's actually a stack, but I can't I know, and I can't bring myself to like have it out. I don't want to be that obnoxious guy that's like, oh Jesus, Jay's talking about his book again.
It's a major goal for anyone to do.
It was a bucket list thing for a while. Okay.
We actually, by removing those two options, to your point, we now actually have a pipeline overview where it is git clone and install this. So that's actually, we've made progress, right?
We have, although the fact that they're not shown as dependents of each other concerns me, because it should be left to right.
The pipeline that we defined has them as two separate things versus...
Yeah, if you go back to the overview, actually, let's see if this even works. I don't know if this is how the UI works. Try to
drag and drop it.
Right. Yes, exactly. Does not seem to be. Maybe go under edit on the right side. So actions. Oh, never mind.
You
this
can
is one of the things where I've seen
specify.
demoed a dozen times and then have never actually done it myself to remember exactly how the editor works. It also, you are on an older version, so it might not have had that GUI in place.
Is there, I mean, real question is, I mean, this is 4.3 of OpenShift, am I correctly? Is 4.3 and 4.4 that big of a jump?
For pipelines, I would say yes, because there's been a lot of change. Same with Knative or serverless. Serverless now is GA in 4.4, which has a lot of changes. Pipelines had a bunch of changes in terms of like the visual things that we're talking about we should be doing. I don't know if they work though, because like a lot of times me and Jay are like on some of the development, like UI, UX, like defining like calls that, you know, help kind of figure out what's going on in the next release. So sometimes I might see some of that stuff.
I know, and that's why we're struggling right now, being like, I don't remember what landed when, because we see it constantly. But to another point, because like Brian's right in pointing out the differences between the betas and the GAs, or in this case, alpha to beta GA. But there also is the other underlying, from version to version for the foreseeable future, the answer is it that different? Yes, when it comes to the developer perspective. That is so under development right now, and there's so many additions that, like Brian was referring to, we're seeing and getting feedback on, which is really, really cool. Like, you know, there's definitely places in Red Hat that don't do this as well. I'm not going to lie, but the amount of the way the UX team is working with PM and development is actually super, super cool and like very well done in this case. So the fact that we're seeing and getting this input on all this stuff early is really, really neat. But it does leave me and Brian in this weird fuzzy stage where we're like, I don't remember when this landed. I don't remember if this landed yet, or if she was, because she's good. She's like, this is coming in, and then it just blurs together at this point.
So in this, so where you're at, you just need to define run after in the same like tabbed overness of task ref in the install pycodestyle. So yeah, underneath that or whatever, add run after, and you want to run it after the git clone.
Run dash after? Oh, capital A.
Run after, capital A, one word, and then enter. Oh, I guess that works. That's fine, because it should just be one. I think that's okay.
So this came up on my other stream. I'm gonna when you hit. Oh shit.
Oh, it needs to be it needs to be
a list.
A list.
So what would you call the case that run after is in?
That case is like, what is it? It's camel case, maybe?
That's camel case, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about if git clone, if instead of a dash, it was an underscore? What would you call that case?
Snake case.
This is why, see, Christian, estimating yourself on the stream, JJ is a proper nerd and did not look at me like, oh, what are you talking about? It's just snake case.
Nope.
What? Who gave you that? I don't remember this.
This just came up on the other stream where like they're looking at me like I'm absurd for being like, no, change it to, it converts between snake case and camel case. And they're like, Jay, what the hell are you talking about? I need a proper gray beard on this call with me.
There you go.
It's all about consistency. You need to know your cases, man.
That's right.
Jay, all you gotta do is send me a link, man. Just be like, JJ, join this call.
Yeah, right.
Back me up.
Come back me up. I should have known. You of all people, out of any one of my friends these days, you of all people would get it. Bringing it back now, you'll see this is the image I was expecting to see and how I was trying to describe it earlier, that it's almost column-based in the sense that those are the steps, isn't the right word, time cycles almost. Where this install is dependent on git clone, and if we had other things at the same level of pycodestyle, they would appear underneath it. And then you get this tree, back to the earlier question of the tree or the DAG, which I actually didn't know if DHE stood for either, but once we get back to that earlier question, that kind of flow from left to right. And then there's ways, maybe in 4.4 then, to visually have little hooks around them like you would see in GIMP or Inkscape or something like that, to then wire them up in the UI and have it reflect properly in the underlying YAML.
So there was inside of Jenkins with Blue Ocean, there is this guy.
Yeah.
Which is basically what we're building, right? Like, as you can see, there's a bunch of spin-offs to do that. So this is a way to programmatically create that pipeline. Is that right?
Okay. Yeah, and then like I said, it might be in 4.4 where you start to get anchor hooks on these in an edit screen, and I can draw lines between them and have it connect it properly. I want to say it's 4.4. You know, again, this is one of those things that we provided feedback on. This is specifically that step, and being able to click on one of those and see the breakdown that I had said, you know, this is really badass, that Serena then quoted me on in the UX slides following it.
So I'm looking at a what's new in OpenShift 4.4 like slide deck that we had, and yes, OpenShift 4.4 has pipelines that went into tech preview. So we're currently in the dev preview version of that. But one of the major bullet points is authoring pipelines with the pipeline builder. So the UI now has that as a part of it. So anyways, yeah, that's something that's new in OpenShift 4.4 that you should get to make this process a little bit easier.
We should probably mention that next week in the What's New in 4.4 Developer Edition, that talk that we're doing.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a pipeline that it runs, and if we run this,
but this is also kind of important because, like, so if git clone ran and then you had like 3 different things that you wanted to do, right? They don't need to be like one by one. You could tie them together. So, like, one of the original, like, earlier questions of the stream was, can you run this stuff in parallel, like across the cluster or whatever? And this is kind of what you would do to be able to achieve some of that parallelism, right? You would do the git clone first, and then say you have like 3 other tasks or 4 other tasks that you're running after, just like this install pycodestyle or whatever. The next thing you would do would be like, say, hey, this next one would be run after git clone, and then this next one would be run after git clone, and those tasks would all run in parallel in their own container in the same pod, if we're getting this stuff right, and that all ties together, right?
You can't, like, running all that stuff would be great for like linting and like doing unit tests and possibly some integration tests. But if anything changed, like if you ran something that was, well, I guess you wouldn't, right? Because even if it's on a shared volume with everything can read from it, you wouldn't be writing to it anyway, right?
Yeah. You ultimately, what it ends up leading to is it's not just as simple as I'm going to throw my tasks down and be done with it. There is iteration, there is optimization that goes into designing these correctly, and then more correctly, like any sort of refinement where you're like, okay, I can actually parallelize these steps to, you know, speed the pipeline up, or no, this dependency has to exist because it's some kind of mutation, instead of just like if your linter also did a code reformatting, you know, you would be like, okay, now it makes sense to pull this into its own separate step or something like that. So there is, I was gonna say intelligence to it, but that's probably a better way of saying it. But there's definitely design and considerations to take into there.
Well, I mean, when I was back in my Rails shop, our test suite took 6 hours to run. It was pretty bad.
That was the OpenStack days for me, about an hour and a half to get the O, which was kind of the installer and deployer. And this was back, I think this has all changed, but this was back when the entire control plane basically ran on individual VMs. So it was like a minimum of 6 VMs that had to get built and started up. Yeah. And like, for me, who's like as much as I want to, hype myself up, I'm very much that kind of coder that does something and then just throws it at the wall and sees what the unit tests tell me. So I'll do syntax errors and then have the unit test tell me like, oh shit, that didn't run. And that's just kind of how I've always been, because I tend to design my projects where I'm like, it's not long to run them. And I got really, really punished when I was looking at like an 87-minute build just to find out that, I spelled something wrong. And yeah, it was painful, but 6 hours, holy cow, it's even worse.
Yep. It was bad. It was real bad. Okay. Sorry,
so
I'm
just trying to think. So like in our pipeline, since basically these things run in individual containers, these tasks do. So if the installed pycodestyle PEP8, shouldn't that be a step that just says like run PEP8 and like we run the thing in that as well? Because like if the next task would be run PEP8,
it's
you would have to have a container that would have to have PEP8 installed. Like you could like build the PEP8 thing and put it in an image, but like I don't think that would be a task.
I think you're right. I think the task is run PEP8 ultimately. I mean, the other option would be drop it on a mount that someone else would have access to, but that's also not really the best approach. But I think you're right. I think that, and honestly, that's interesting too. Again, it goes down to there actually being like a design step to this. Like, what's the reusable task here? Not really installing PEP8. It's a full-blown ability to run it.
You can't change the name?
Can't change the name of the resource. Probably.
Yeah, that just might be a generalized, like, screws up if that's what it's actually referencing.
Okay. Well, I'm going to create a new task. Yep.
Paste.
I'm going to take my ball and go home. I'm going to do it my way.
No paste in that option.
That is weird.
Style. And then get rid of the UID and
the metadata in general.
Yeah. All you really care about is like the name and the namespace. You don't even really care about the namespace that's implied.
There you go.
Yeah, sweet.
So go back to this guy and then change this.
So like, what do you guys think? Is this best practice this way? Like this one step has install everything in the requirements, which is installing pycodestyle and then running pycodestyle. Like, would we just want to use our own container image that already has that installed so we don't have to rewrite on PyPy?
No, not necessarily. Not? Because at least if this was larger, what I would do is, first of all, I'd pin it to a very specific version of
in your requirements.txt.
In my requirements.txt, which we don't. And then I would probably have a local mirror of some sort. So I would pull it down so I wouldn't rely on PyPy. Also, I would definitely have like a py test, one that would run after the git clone 2. I would spit it out, like to what we were saying, is I'd have a fan of these things to run to make sure that all these different things were what I expected to. Hell, even maybe some checking of the git commits for like DCO or something like that. Like doing all these different things as small modules, then go to the point where I would like do integration tests, and maybe there's multiple integration tests off of the different things, have it split out that way, because you never know which one. Like you need to modularize it. Like I truly, utterly, to my core, when it comes to computers, believe in the Unix model, right? Where you do one thing and one thing well, right? Yep. Like that is the only way for your, like, yes, you might end up getting like massive pipelines built out of this, but it allows you to modularize and focus on one little thing, which when I say that, then you're like, JJ, you must love serverless. And I'm like, I just can't get my fucking head wrapped around serverless for the life of me.
But you are on the right track. I mean, even just generally containers, I think you're on a bit of a right track there. Like, and it's neat to see that mentality come full circle.
Yeah.
Which makes it sound more like it got out of vogue, but it's more that it's the reemphasis is back on that type of Linux tool mentality.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
and I agree with that. I agree 100%. I like that too. It's a good answer.
I've been known to answer good questions, or good answers with good questions. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm getting punchy. It's okay. So we have I changed the pipeline around. We're now doing code style. I really do just want to hit start to see what happens.
Try it. What will it do? Will it blend?
There we go. Hey, nice.
Right? There you go. Oh, look.
We wanted to see this, right?
Like we're smarter than us. No.
Yeah. It's like you goddamn idiots.
So this would be like the Python or the pipeline requirements. Is that what resource pipeline resource context that we need to give?
Oh, interesting. It forces you to use git clone. Wait, what?
Wait, did I miss that?
What do you mean?
Like, it says pre-provided git URL. You can't do an HTTP clone?
No, I think it's...
That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, okay? I think that might just be the description.
Okay.
It's not a red box.
Like
where it says required, it's not red.
Okay. And then param name, first run, sure. Master, and then Python. No. Yeah. Python, right?
Yeah.
For your app image.
Nope. Still not.
So what does that drop down for apt-get say?
They're not. They're grayed out.
Oh, okay. Since you type something, okay.
This is bothersome. Though we do see a checkbox. Oh, here we go. Oh,
it's creating okay. All right, Brian, we got to tell Serena about this one, and I'm curious if it's still like this in 4.4 because that was not intuitive. That
not at all.
Them and dropping them in there.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I understand why you have to do it because it's creating those resources or whatever. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that was weird.
Like it should at least give us a notification or something that says like, hey, you don't have a resource defined, or I don't know, something.
So it immediately failed.
Yay!
They look like
at least we're getting somewhere.
Here we go. Sad trombone. Sad trombone.
Oh, I gotta listen to the trombone.
I gotta listen to that too.
Yay.
That was good.
Yep. Okay. So missing values for
it's amazing.
Yep. I'm gonna get it through our headphones. I'm going to make that happen. It's so we don't have to do that, but bear with me.
I'm sure that makes for great stream watching as we all pause to listen to ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly. Hold on. Sorry. We got to listen to the sound effects.
All right. So no default values for URL. What the fuck does that mean? So this is the actual YAML that ran.
It's a resource ref. Okay. So go back into pipeline resources on the left.
Resources.
The fact that the pipeline resource is called git-blah, I think it's looking for the word URL, but I could be wrong on that one. Actually, I think I'm wrong now that I say that out loud. Click through it. Let's see what happens. And go into the YAML. It does have a prior named URL. That's actually where I think we're right.
Well, the modal gave us that, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is, and this goes back to 20 minutes ago, and this is what I was more expecting to see, that we had this avenue for specifying a name value. And if we go back into the pipeline, I guess it would be the pipeline run. Actually, wait a minute. Yeah, go into the pipeline. And YAML. Okay.
So do we put these resources in?
No, I think this is right, but what I was making sure is we still weren't asking for anything in here, but we have a resource, apt-get and apt-image, which is what we created, and go into the pipeline run. Did I freeze?
No, you're still here. I don't think JJ is here though.
I think we lost JJ.
JJ,
which is awful timing because I'm like 1 minute away from a hard stop at 5:30, and he's going to come back and be like, "What the hell happened?" What do we think? OBS probably. Oh no, this would be Zoom crashing. Oh no, JJ's gone. I imagine this means Zoom is done too, or Twitch is done too.
No way. Like Twitch, yeah, the Twitch stream is gonna. Oh, his machine is still on. Okay. His streamer. So JJ connects to this whole thing. Like Zoom is running on a separate machine, and then he is running his stuff locally, and they're both connected to Zoom. So his local stuff died.
All right. So the Twitch stream part is still working. Wow, this is going to be awkward to vamp. Do we think? And I was about to drop out, which I can't do now because I feel particularly bad leaving you. Let's see. Can one of us screen share? Do you want to quickly pull up the learn.openshift thing and start banging through that? So that way we have like a canned example. I mean, we've explained the concept. So just clicking through the workshop should actually go pretty quick, and we'll see all of the things we've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have access, I guess, to the console UI that we were working on or whatever. So
no, yeah, you're saying you personally don't. His Mac decided to lose internet. How am I? I'm not even seeing that in Zoom. I'm seeing that in the stream. Oh, here we go, chat. Okay, so he's oddly connected. I think that's our play. I think pull up, learn that OpenShift, share that, and start talking through those examples, that one Katacoda, and it won't be the console view. I mean, I feel like it does pull you into the console at one point, but it's not going to be like a newer console. Actually, it's probably running on 4.3, isn't it?
It's 4.2.10. But let me. I should be able to share my screen.
What's that one under? Foundations?
It's under building applications.
Okay. I'm like 90% of the way through refactoring those. I really should just suck it up and do it by now. So what Brian's pulling up, learn.openshift.com, I should type that into the chat channel, is a series of Katacoda-based scenarios where you connect to them and it will run you through a 10 to 15-minute course. And Brian, I'm only seeing the left side of your browser. So it's cutting off anything after vertx, for instance. So while you're messing with that, so learn.openshift.com, they're available at all times. It's not like a pay thing. We run them through our booth at conferences and whatnot. 10 to 15-minute demos that pinpoint a single feature or a single product. There's about 40 to 50 of them at this point. And then you'll see once it comes up, there'll be instructions on the left side, and then the right side is going to give you access to a cluster, both from a terminal access and from a console. So once you connect, I think they stay alive for 45 minutes to an hour, and then you run through on the left side, and they're canned examples. So what we're going to go through now, or Brian is when I leave him, is going to be the pipelines example for or the Katacoda scenario. And that's going to have all of the steps in terms of some description. So it'll teach you what a run is, what a resource is, a lot of the things we've already covered. But then it's going to have the code already checked out and a lot of the libraries preloaded to kind of speed you through it. I'm guessing you're still having browser issues here?
For some reason, it does not want to share.
Is it you're running like some crazy resolution, aren't you?
Yeah, normally. Let's see if this looks a little bit better. Nope, still not.
That's microphone.
Why does it want to do that? That's so weird. I guess let me try to rejoin then. Hold on.
Yay, it's just me alone on the IBM developer Twitch stream. Welcome to the All J show. Thank you for tuning in. I really wish I had something more compelling to say. It's the fabled usability of the ThinkPad. God, what else can I talk about? Yeah, thank you, Ghost Pepper Hacker. Please ask me a question that you can have me answer. No, the pipeline stuff. I mean, to kind of pull this in, the UI pipeline. God, this is it. This is my moment where I can completely be that obnoxious guy who pulls out the book. The pipeline stuff. Damn, someone's back to keep me in check. The pipeline stuff is you kind of heard us alluding to. The UI is under constant development. It's really come a long way. And this ability, once we get things kind of hashed out of, I'm going to build the Lego blocks I want to, and then kind of piece them together, tie it all together with specific values. So I'm going to run it on this URL. More importantly, this is going to be the image repository I push it into, for instance, and then that way we're going to have the ability to have different configurations run the pipeline and then put them in different places. So this is now pushing it to prod, and this is pushing it to QA and development. And the fact that I said prod before QA and development kind of speaks wonders about how I do things. Looked right until you started scrolling, and then it got kind of cut off again.
And I just realized I was sharing the Zoom chat in the stream also.
You were, but that's honestly how we saw it, because otherwise I wouldn't have noticed it because my screen was full screen. So I was reading it off in there.
Nice.
So I take it you're back online now.
Yes, I am.
Oddly enough, you probably heard all of that, but we're very surprised that it wasn't OBS crashing. It was actually Zoom, or it sounds like it was your entire mic. Although, as I say that, I see a network error on Twitch, so it's possible that crashed again too.
Yeah, same.
No, that's back. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling this is one of those moments where you're like, huh, maybe they're just telling us to kind of wrap this up and go. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially because I have kids screaming in the background that it is time for me to be off of this.
It says we're offline now, I think.
Yep. Okay. Well, hang on.
Do we do a continuation?
Yeah, we can.
All right, well, that's on YouTube because I badly need to drop out. So,
all right, guys.
Thank you, guys. I will see you next week.
Yep. Bye.